Have you ever wondered what waits beyond the places we've seen? Beyond the stars we name and map, in the spaces where even light forgets its way home. Let yourself settle, close your eyes, and listen to the calm in my voice. There's no rush, no need to move, only the soft hum of stars, the gentle current of time itself, and a journey that begins not with an explosion, but with a breath. Let everything go. The thoughts of today, the plans of tomorrow. You're floating now, in stillness, wrapped in the hush of an ancient night, where the galaxy is not something far away, but something that carries you like a leaf on the breezy. You drift slowly past familiar stars, their light warm, golden, echoing with age. Some blink slowly, others shine in silence, but all of them are behind you now. You're headed for a region beyond the known, where gravity stretches and bends in quiet ways, where the rules of space begin to curl inward, the stars begin to thin, scattered farther apart, the light dimming with distance, until the void around you becomes smooth, like black silk. But it isn't empty, it hums. Not with sound, but with presence. The ship carries you onward, slow and steady, past the final breaths of distant suns, towards something vast and unseen. It isn't frightening, it's calm, ancient, waiting. Then on the edge of perception it begins to reveal itself, a shadow among shadows, not dark like absence, but dark like depth, a black hole, not spinning, not roaring, not swallowing, but resting. Its sphere shimmers with a faint glow, not from itself, but from the bending light of stars far behind. Their glow curves around the edges, drawn inward by gravity that stretches space like a soft drum skin. Time feels strange here, heavy, like honey. Everything moves a little slower, even thought, even breath. The ship enters a gentle orbit, skimming the edge of the event horizon, where light skates and spirals before falling inward. You are not falling, you are floating, watching the curve of space-time from the edge of wonder. There is nothing to do here, nothing to solve, only to see, only to feel. Let yourself drift in this hush, in this presence older than stars. Let it hold you, let it soften your thoughts. The story will continue, but for now, just rest. The ship drifts on the curve of the black hole's boundary, gliding along the outer edge of the event horizon, where space folds like silk, drawn slowly into a whirlpool. You are not pulled. You are not forced. You're gently circling, kept in a perfect orbit where gravity's grip is steady but patient. Around you, the stars are bent into soft arcs, their light stretched into crescents by the curvature of space. Even distant galaxies appear warped and doubled, mirrored across the black hole's rim, as if you're peering through a lens carved from space-time itself. It's quiet here, but not empty. There is motion all around, in the long, slow fall of radiation, in the curling paths of distant particles caught in invisible streams. The black hole does not roar. It does not burn. It waits. It holds. Its surface is not a surface at all, but a line beyond which time cannot return. A threshold that does not close behind you, but expands outward in every direction. And in this place, so near the boundary, time has begun to change. It happens gradually. The ship's instruments flicker with a rhythm that feels slightly slower than before, though nothing mechanical has shifted. The pulses of distant stars, once steady, now seem to stretch longer between each blink. The silence outside deepens, and even the light takes on a weight, as if it's moving through syrup. This isn't imagination, it's the warping of time. The gravity here bends not just the paths of planets, but the flow of seconds themselves. A minute inside the ship is no longer a minute outside. Clocks tick slower, not broken, just drawn out. Time stretches as gravity deepens, and the black hole's mass compressed into infinite density slows the world around it into a long, low exhale. You are not afraid. You are you are in the presence of something that changes everything it touches, not by destruction, but by distortion. And in this slowed rhythm, you begin to notice things you would never have seen at speed. The swirling arcs of light have patterns. The silence between pulses is full of texture, and your thoughts, once fleeting, now bloom more slowly, expanding into shapes you can finally rest within. Deeper into the orbit you drift, the ship sliding around the invisible edge where light curves and time folds. The black hole remains motionless at the center, but its gravity sings in ways you can feel through your bones. A soft, low hum, not sound, but pressure, not music, but presence. You pass a region where remnants of a fallen star are slowly spiraling inward, pulled across space like threads of silk unraveling. They do not burn, they do not scream. They fall in silence, glowing faintly in infrared and ghostly blue, forming long streamers that stretch for kilometers. These are tidal forces at work, not tides of water, but tides of time, of mass, of reality itself. Here, a second stretches longer. There, matter begins to tremble as its atoms pull apart, but nothing happens quickly. The fall is gentle, everything is slow, and in that slowness there is peace. The universe in all its immensity allows this space to stretch between moments. You do not need to understand it. You only need to be here, at the edge of time, watching its tides pull long and soft across the sea of stars. Let your breath follow their rhythm. Let your body relax into the curve. You are safe, you are still, and the journey continues. The ship continues its orbit, gliding slowly along the gravitational arc that hugs the black hole's event horizon. You are closer now, but still far from the boundary where return becomes impossible. Here, the light no longer behaves as it once did. It moves differently. It stretches and bends in slow, elegant waves, curling inward toward the black sphere like ribbons caught in a deep current. Some of it escapes, but most clings tightly, trapped in long spirals of orbiting brightness. These are called photon spheres, regions where light itself is forced into circular motion, caught between the desire to flee and the pull to surrender. As your vessel drifts beside one of these luminous bands, you see beams of starlight looping around the hole, sometimes circling it multiple times before they scatter away into the universe again. These rays are not reflections. They are echoes of photons launched ages ago, still in motion, still circling, frozen light. Not in time, but in destiny. They remain here because this is where gravity has folded their path into an endless curve. There's no urgency in their dance, no purpose, only the slow continuation of something begun long ago. The ship turns slightly, gliding into a corridor where more of these photon rings gather like ancient halos, stacked upon one another. The glow is subtle, muted golds and dusty silver, like candlelight remembered in a dream. Each loop of light holds a different signature, a different origin. Some were born from stars now long dead. Others were cast from galaxies too distant to name, and yet they are here, drawn together by gravity's hand, flowing like a chorus through the dark. As your ship eases closer, the light casts soft shadows through the viewport, slow-moving shapes that stretch across the cabin like brushstrokes on old parchment. There is no sound but your breath, no movement but the slow orbit of captured light. You reach out and place your hand against the glass. It is warm, not from heat, but from motion. The echo of light brushing against the hull with every pass. You feel its patience. You feel its persistence. You feel the story it tells without words. You drift quietly through these corridors of frozen light, where time does not stop but slows into grace, where particles that once raced at the speed of causality now whisper as they circle in silence. In this moment, your body forgets urgency. Your mind loosens its grip on schedules and weight. You are inside something eternal, something soft and dark and slow, and you are not alone. Around you, light that began its journey before your world was born continues to move, not forward, not backward, just around, just here, just being. Let yourself do the same. There is nowhere to go, only this, only now, only the quiet loop of frozen light in the gravity of a waiting star. As your ship eases past the final loops of frozen light, the space around you begins to darken once again, not with emptiness, but with depth. The black hole looms larger now, its shape still perfectly round, perfectly still, and yet pulsing with invisible motion. It is not spinning visibly, but you can feel the twist it creates in the fabric of space. The closer you draw, the more the universe bends in subtle spirals. Even time begins to move sideways, not linearly, but in soft arcs, like petals curling inward at the close of a bloom. The ship adjusts with grace, falling into a deeper orbit now, one that skims the rim of the event horizon itself. Here, the warping is intense. What was once distant behind you is now doubled, mirrored, curved until you can see stars both in front and behind at once. Your own reflection appears in the glass, not of your face but of your presence, a shape caught between stillness and motion, watching the void. Then something deeper begins to rise. Not noise, not vibration, but resonance. The black hole hums, not with sound, but with gravitation, with memory. The ship's systems detect subtle fluctuations in the event horizon, ripples too small to be seen but felt in pressure and time. Gravitational waves sent out from events long past. Collisions, collapses, ancient dances of mass and motion, now translated into ripples in the structure of space-time itself. These waves do not shake you. They wash over and through, like tides brushing softly across the hull. Each one carries with it the imprint of something vast and distant, a pair of stars spinning into one another, a neutron core cracking in half, a galaxy's breath shifting its weight. These echoes in the well are not noise, they are memory. They are the black hole listening to the universe and speaking back in slow, low waves. You sit in silence. As the ship drifts deeper into this well of memory, the resonance continues, steady and low, like a lullaby sung in gravity. Each ripple smooths the air around you, slowing your thoughts, stretching your breath. You feel the history of the cosmos, not as a story, but as a sensation. You realize that nothing truly vanishes here. Everything leaves a mark, a shape in the curve, a wave in the dark. The black hole, once thought to be a devourer of all things, is not an end. It is a well of echoes, keeping time in folds and ripples too deep to chart. You are floating now in the gravity of those echoes, and in their rhythm you begin to rest. There is more to see, more to feel, more to wonder. But for now, you drift in the soft song of space, remembering itself. You drift now in a space where distance loses meaning. The ship, still orbiting in the outer grasp of the black hole, has settled into an elegant, circular path, carried not by speed or thrust, but by the curve of gravity's own design. The stars seem to stretch further apart out here, as if pulled gently by the hole's presence, their light elongating into streamers of gold and violet across the soft black canvas. The curvature of space itself becomes more apparent, more tangible, bending lines into curves and shadows into arcs. Every direction feels inward. There's no longer a sense of forward or back, only around, only within. And as you follow this path, something unexpected begins to reveal itself. An emergence of form and color where none should be. A region suspended between collapse and light, hidden just outside the edge of possibility. You enter what scientists long ago imagined only in theory, A gravity well so delicately shaped, so evenly curved, that it allows stability in a place defined by distortion. Here, inside this suspended zone, objects have gathered, not by accident, not through collision, but through harmony. Tiny asteroids, fragile crystalline forms, and soft clouds of charged dust orbit one another like petals in slow, layered spirals. The black hole's gravity, intense and unyielding, has become here a sculptor, guiding matter into gentle, looping shapes that drift like underwater flowers, suspended in a dark ocean. You've entered the gravity garden. It is not a structure or a station. It was never built. It formed slowly over time, shaped by orbit and mass, and the soft equilibrium that arises when chaos becomes rhythm. Nothing moves fast here. The orbits are long, the dust turns in slow whirls, forming luminous arches and halos around clusters of gleaming minerals. Some formations look like vines climbing invisible trellises, others resemble enormous shells made of stone and starlight, turning slowly on an axis you cannot see. The ship glides between these forms, threading softly through paths where no sound travels and no light is wasted. Each shape is traced with a faint glow, the result of gravitational lensing and thermal radiation too subtle to measure. You pass near a drifting structure, smooth, dark and spiraled like the horn of a sleeping creature. Its surface shimmers with a spectrum of faint colors, blues and greens that shift like reflections on deep water. It rotates once as you pass, casting a curved shadow across the path behind you. You realize that this place, impossible as it is, has held these patterns for The black hole's pull has not shattered them. It has preserved them, gently tugging everything toward a central dance, where destruction slows into serenity. These shapes are not debris, they are relics. They are the quiet art of gravity sculpting matter over lifetimes beyond. This garden was never meant to be seen, yet here you are, drifting softly among the blooms of time's slowest season. As you glide deeper into the center of the gravity garden, the stars above are nearly eclipsed by the curving arms of orbiting dust and stone. They loop around you in layered spirals, each one moving a fraction slower than the last, like the inner workings of a clock wound in sleep. You pass through a ring of mist, tiny particles, suspended in an arc that stretches 1,000 kilometers, each speck glowing faintly from the lensing light behind it. The mist parts for your vessel and then reforms as you pass, undisturbed. This place knows how to hold what enters. It does not resist, it welcomes. You pass near a cluster of stones caught in a three-body orbit, weaving around each other with perfect timing. Their dance so precise it feels rehearsed, but it isn't. It's the natural outcome of balance, of slow gravity at work, building harmony from chaos. You feel your thoughts begin to align with this rhythm, your breath syncing with the soft turns and curves around you. There is nothing to question, nothing to analyze. You are watching the universe rest, and in its resting, it teaches you how to let go. Eventually, the ship begins to drift outward once more, carried along the gentle curve of your orbit. The structures of the garden fall away behind you, their shapes becoming silhouettes against the dim glow of the black hole's shadow. The stars return, scattered in quiet arcs, their light less distorted now, their motion slower. You leave the gravity garden not with sadness, but with stillness. Its patterns stay with you not in images but in feeling. The gentle spirals, the quiet turn, the way light curved around shadow without vanishing. You carry those things now, tucked beneath your thoughts like a song you hum without noticing. The black hole still waits ahead, its pull steady, its silence profound, but you are not rushing. You are drifting, and the galaxy continues to unfold around you, soft and slow and full of wonder. The gravity garden slips quietly into the distance, its shapes dissolving into curved silhouettes, its orbits fading into the soft murmur of background motion. Now, the space around your ship feels deeper again, less adorned, more abstract. The black hole looms closer, still motionless in its mystery, still immense in its silence. It doesn't appear larger because it moves. It appears larger because you've begun to understand its presence. It no longer feels like an absence of matter or a wound in the sky. It feels like something held in place by the weight of all that it remembers. The light around it still bends, still curves, but now the curves are sharper, more severe. Time here does more than stretch. It behaves differently, not in fragments or failures, but in loops. You are nearing the region known only in theory by many, but here in your quiet drift it is real. The paradox horizon, not the event horizon, but the space just before it, where light still has a choice, where time's arrow begins to hesitate, where space is not flat, but folded. Your ship enters the edge of this region with gentle motion. Instruments on the console flicker, not in error, but in disagreement. Multiple possibilities begin to register, measurements double, then triple, as if more than one version of your ship exists in orbit now. Time dilates. The ship's internal clock ticks normally. But outside, particles behave strangely. You pass a fragment of stardust suspended in place, seemingly frozen, and yet from a different angle it blurs and loops, moving backward and forward in a rhythm that makes no logical sense. But it is not broken. It is not wrong. This is what the black hole does to time near its boundary. It folds it. It allows more than one direction. It invites paradox, and you are floating in its edge, inside the slow swirl of a place where cause and effect become fluid. Ahead, the event horizon shimmers, not as a solid line, but as a haze, an undulating veil drawn between what can return and what never will. It is not bright. It is not dark. It is both. Light skirts it in tight spirals, looping again and again before being pulled in or cast back. Your ship holds steady, its course precise. You do not cross the line. You drift beside it, like a traveler, moving along the edge of a page that's never been read. Then something changes, not outside but inside. A sensation, as if your memories are stretching slightly, loosening from their fixed place in the order of things. You remember a moment from long ago, perhaps a scent, perhaps a voice, and then realize you don't know if it already happened or is yet to come. The horizon affects more than light and time. It affects thought. Here, time is no longer a line. It is a field, and you are moving through it not with your body, but with your awareness. You recall moments from your past with unusual clarity. You see yourself not as a series of events, but as a presence moving in waves. The ship drifts in silence beside the shimmering veil, its lights dimmed to match the hush of the boundary. You are not afraid. The paradox is not danger. It is death. It is the place where reality slows enough for you to notice that it is more flexible than it seemed. You are still yourself. You are still here. But now, you are also aware of how wide the space around you truly is. You breathe in that awareness. You hold it gently. And the ship continues its slow curve around the place where time forgets to end. You drift now in a space where the known ends quietly, where certainty dissolves not with noise but with soft, radiant patience. The paradox horizon lies just behind you, its shimmering veil fading into folds of bent starlight. And ahead, suspended in the deepest center of all that you have orbited, waits the singularity, not as a visible shape, not as something that can be seen or drawn or even clearly imagined, but as an idea, as a truth resting behind the curtain of everything else. The singularity does not glow. It does not spin. It does not exist in the way other things exist. It is not a place. It is a collapse. The total convergence of mass, time, space, and gravity into a point of zero width, infinite density, and undefined behavior. From a distance, it seems empty. But as your ship approaches the edge, it becomes something else entirely. Present, felt, not in vision or sound, but in a shift inside you, like standing too close to something enormous that cannot be named. Your ship begins to arc once again, holding a path just outside the boundary of no return. You will not cross, you cannot, but you are near enough now to hear what the universe rarely shares. A whisper from the edge of knowing. Around the singularity, space itself flows inward, not pulled but surrendered. Time curves so tightly here that it becomes vertical. Clocks inside would stop, or rather, fall endlessly into a well of duration that no longer connects to anything outside. But in this moment, on this gentle arc just above the surface of infinity, something stirs a sound, deep and without pitch, like the memory of thunder before it speaks. This is the hum of the singularity, not mechanical, not musical, a presence, a vibration that moves not through air but through space-time. Your ship registers it in patterns, tiny fluctuations in the local field, irregular pulses in the gravity wave detectors, like a heartbeat too large to be measured. And though it cannot be fully explained, you understand what it is. The black hole is not silent. It sings. Its song is not in the range of hearing. It is in the curve of everything around it, in the slow orbit of dust, in the dance of particles, in the bending of light and time. You are hearing the shape of a collapsed star still echoing through space, holding its memory not in brightness, but in shadow. You linger in this orbit, circling the edge of the unknowable, listening to the gravity song that ripples across the hull of your vessel and deep into the quiet between your thoughts. The singularity, for all its mystery, is not hostile. It is not consuming you. It is resting, folded into itself, the final breath of a sun long gone, still keeping rhythm at the center of a structure it cannot escape. You think of what it once was, a star perhaps like your own sun, glowing with life and motion, burning over billions of years until its fuel vanished and its weight overcame its light. And now, that weight still sings, not in grief, not in warning, but in witness. The ship continues its slow, wide orbit, never falling, never flying away. You are a guest here, in the silence at the center of collapse, where the universe remembers and forgets all at once. You close your eyes, you let the hum carry you, and the galaxy holds its breath a little longer. The orbit holds steady, curved around the boundary of the singularity's unknowable core, and your ship floats in that rarest space, a place both inside and outside of understanding. You have not entered the black hole, but you are deeper than most will ever reach, resting in the thin margin where time folds like soft linen and memory begins to blur. The view through the observation panels is not black. It is luminous, scattered, shaped by light drawn inward and stretched along impossible arcs. Stars that lie behind you appear ahead. Light curves twice, thrice, looping through the intense warping until it becomes a sculpture of color and form painted onto the very air of space. In this quiet gravity, photons don't race, they linger, held in place like brushstrokes on a still canvas. The stars you see may no longer shine. Their light has circled here for millennia, trapped near the edge of no return, preserved like whispers on the edge of a dream. Your ship crosses a corridor of space where this light thickens, forming not matter but presence. These are not reflections. These are echoes, faint impressions of places and times held together by the extreme curve of space-time. A star collapsing in another quadrant of the galaxy, a planet spinning around its sun in perfect rhythm, a comet's long arc through frozen silence. Their light has reached this region, only to be caught and bent, stretched and turned until it floats in loops like slow rivers around the singularity. And within these loops, memory becomes visible. Not your memory, not thought, but the memory of the universe itself. You pass through an arc where light from 1,000 worlds glows in soft halos. It does not speak, it does not flicker. It simply is. And in its stillness you feel something open within your own thoughts, a widening, a gentle rearrangement. You remember your own life not in sequence, not in detail, but in feeling. The warmth of a voice, the stillness of a forgotten afternoon, a breeze through open windows in a house that may no longer exist. Time here is curved, and in that curve your memory stretches too, becoming longer, deeper, softer. The ship passes through the final loop of light where memory no longer clings to stars but floats freely, like golden mist in a twilight field. The singularity lies behind you now, still humming, still hidden, still holding the shape of its vanished sun. You drift away slowly, the orbit widening as the ship's path curves outward into regions where time begins to behave more as it once did. But you are not returning. You are continuing. The journey is still unfolding, and you are carrying the memory of that place with you. Not as a fact, not as an image, but as a sensation that now hums in the spaces between your breaths. You are changed, not because you crossed into something forbidden, but because you came close to something eternal and let it hold you. The stars ahead beckon once more, and the black hole behind you continues its patient watch, whispering across the fabric of space in waves too deep to fade. The ship glides away from the black hole's embrace with the gentlest of motion, as if released from the pull of a deep and ancient breath. There is no push, no engine flare, no sound, only the slow widening of your orbit, as space gradually becomes less curved and time begins to stretch into its familiar rhythm. Behind you, the singularity remains invisible, its song now a distant thrum, a presence remembered more than heard. The stars ahead begin to return to their familiar geometry. They no longer appear stretched or doubled or looped, but steady and sure, aligned once more in clean constellations. Yet you know that nothing has truly gone back to normal. Your thoughts move differently now. Your perception has been gently bent by all you've seen and felt, stretched out like light pulled through gravity. You carry the shape of your journey within you. The region ahead glows with a soft haze, not from dust or nebulae, but from gravitational lensing, subtle and precise. The space you enter is threaded with invisible lines of pull, thin currents formed by the dance of ancient masses still locked in distant spirals. Some of these lines you follow unknowingly, drawn into their gentle bends, while others curve away before you reach them, as if they were never meant to be touched. These are the threads of gravity, remnants of long-ago stars and collapsed cores, of unseen planets and wandering clusters. They connect the galaxy in ways few can see. They do not tug or twist, but guide. You find yourself moving along one such path now, following a gentle arc traced by the passage of something massive and slow long ago. The ship responds to it almost automatically, adjusting course with no resistance, as though it too recognizes the presence of these unseen rivers. All around you, space shimmers faintly. The shimmer isn't light, it's motion. Gravity flows like wind through this corridor, bending space with just enough tension. Shape your journey. In one direction, time flows slightly faster. In another, it slows again. These differences are tiny, but noticeable if you pause and watch. A distant star's pulse seems to quicken as you move past one thread, then slows again as you cross another. Gravity is not always heavy. Sometimes it's delicate, like strands of spider silk drawn across the void, holding stories that stretch from one end of the galaxy to the other. You pass near a collection of drifting stones, remnants of a shattered moon, caught in one of these threads. The pieces hover close but do not touch, their orbits frozen in time, each one tracing the memory of a circle it used to follow. They do not collide. They do not fall. They simply remain perfectly still, preserved by gravity's soft web. You pass through them without sound. The ship glides forward, threading the quiet paths that lead through the galactic dark like a whisper in the wind. You float now between the invisible lines that shape the galaxy's deep structure, moving gently through the filaments of gravity, along pathways carved not by ships or civilizations, but by time and mass and the slow rotation of celestial bodies you will never see. Each thread of space you cross carries with it a subtle variation in time, in pressure, in the way starlight bends. There are no stars close by, yet you are never far from motion. All around you, the shape of the cosmos continues to unfold, its scale so vast and patient that it appears still, but you know better. You have felt the pull of a singularity, seen the orbit of frozen light, listened to the hum of things too deep for language. Now, in this stretch of space, you pass through a region where the familiar patterns of the universe begin to shift once more. Not suddenly, not in alarm, but gradually, as if the cosmos is changing its posture, turning slightly to reveal something new. Ahead lies a shimmer not of light, but of dimension. The space before you ripples faintly as if stirred by a breeze you cannot feel. Shapes emerge, not solid or distinct, but like soft reflections in disturbed water. These are distortions, not of sight, but of space-time itself. Some are wide arcs, bending the stars behind them into elegant. Others are vertical waves, gently shifting the alignment of distant constellations. They move in and out of phase as though space is briefly remembering another shape it once held. The ship approaches cautiously, adjusting its trajectory without effort, letting the flow guide it. You pass into the region slowly, and at first you feel only a sense of lightness, like gravity has momentarily forgotten you. Then the dimensions begin to stretch, not in height or width or depth, but in meaning. The space around you feels bigger, but not because there's more of it, because your perception has opened. Time slows again, but not in the same way as near the black hole. This is a different kind of slowness, not the heaviness of gravity, but the thinning of boundaries. The ship floats through folds in space-time that do not behave as expected. You look out, and distances become strained. A star that appears 1,000 kilometers away might, for a moment, seem as close as your own breath. Then it fades again, drawn back into its proper place. These distortions are not errors, they are intersections. Here, the universe overlaps itself. Threads of possibility brush against one another, forming seams where dimensions ripple and blend. This is where space has not settled. It is where it continues to stretch, adjust, unfold. You are drifting through the in-between, the connective tissue of reality. And as you do, the ship begins to register echoes. Not voices, not signals, but patterns. Repeating frequencies that shift slightly every few seconds. They move through the ship's systems without resistance, touching the sensors like a tide brushing against rock. Some are soft harmonics, like a memory of a sound long gone. Others are pulses, mathematical, deliberate, looping, like breath. You realize these aren't random. They're imprints left by objects that passed through this region long ago. Not physical remains, but dimensional echoes. A satellite caught in folded space, stretching a signal across millennia. A ship like yours that drifted briefly through this fold before continuing on. A planet's magnetic field brushing against the seam and leaving behind a trace. This space remembers everything it touches. It does not hold it, but it leaves behind a gentle mark, like a footprint on soft sand. As you pass deeper into the folds, the visual world shifts. You begin to see two versions of the same star, offset by a blink, flickering back and forth between one possibility and another. A field of dust appears ahead, then splits and recombines as if caught between two shapes. It's not disorienting. It's smooth, like watching a dream adjust its narrative mid-thought. Your own reflection in the viewport appears slower now, almost delayed. You smile, and a second later, your reflection does the same. Not haunting, just curious. Time here is not fractured, it is layered. You begin to understand that you're moving not just through space, but through memory, through alternate shapes of what was or might have been. This drift is not a passage in the usual sense. It is an encounter with a region of the galaxy that has no fixed shape, only transitions, only echoes. Eventually, the folds begin to soften. The distortions stretch farther apart. The stars behind them realign. You drift out of the seam slowly, carried by the quiet motion of space into smoother geometry. The echoes grow quieter. The ship begins to stabilize, its system syncing once more with familiar rhythms. And you carry with you the feeling of that drift, not confusion, but depth. You were not lost. You were simply allowed to feel what space is when it is not yet done becoming. Ahead, the stars brighten. Their light reaches you clean, unbent, familiar again. But you know that within the stillness of ordinary space, the mystery remains, just folded deeper, waiting for someone else to drift through. You breathe in, you exhale, and the ship glides onward. The drift through the layered folds of bent dimension has come to its close, and now your ship coasts into a pocket of space so quiet, so perfectly balanced, that even the soft curves of distant starlight seem to settle. You have entered the still point, a region untouched by tides or winds, gravity or pressure, where motion slows into near nothingness, and silence expands into something more than the absence of sound. The ship adjusts without effort, its systems barely whispering, its motion so minimal that even its orientation feels optional. Here, everything simply floats. There are no trajectories, no destinations, only pause. You feel it immediately in your chest, the way the air becomes softer, the way breath flows more easily. There is no resistance, no push. The still point holds you without grasping. It lets you be. Outside the ship, the stars do not flicker, they do not twinkle. They shine steady and slow, pinned in place like beads of glass set into a vast sky. Some seem near, others impossibly far, but none shift. This region is suspended perfectly between all gravitational poles, the null center between colossal forces scattered across light years. No mass dominates, no wave intrudes. In this absence of motion, you begin to notice things normally missed: the subtle rhythm of your own body, the internal echoes of thought, the minute expansion and contraction of time itself. The ship registers faint background radiation, not from any nearby object, but from the cosmos as a whole. The low, ancient hum of the universe still cooling from its creation. A sound older than galaxies fills the space around you like a lullaby that has never stopped playing. You listen to it, not with ears but with presence. You remain here, held in the embrace of equilibrium. The still point is not a place you navigate to. It's a place you arrive at when the universe grows quiet enough to reveal it. Time here is slow but unbroken. The clock on your console ticks forward, but the moments between its pulses feel longer, more deliberate. You are not frozen, you are allowed, and in this permission the deepest kind of rest takes shape. You are still moving. Of course, the galaxy is always moving, but for now, in this suspended cradle of perfect balance, you can finally feel what it's like to stop chasing time, to float without needing to ask what comes next. You let your body soften, your hands rest, your mind quiet, and beyond the stars, the great dark holds you like a thought that doesn't need to be finished. The ship remains still, the lights dim just slightly, and you sleep without knowing when you began. The still point slowly fades behind you, not with distance but with quiet. You are still drifting, though it's impossible to tell how fast or in which direction. In this part of the galaxy, movement feels like a suggestion rather than a law. The ship follows a path not marked by stars or gravity, but by something older, something written into the fabric of space itself. You are entering the deep map, a region not defined by physical matter, but by the long memory of the universe. These are not navigational charts, not routes drawn by explorers or machines. They are pathways etched into space-time by repetition and resonance, by the slow motion of entire galaxies turning on invisible axes for billions of years. The deep map isn't visible to the eye. It reveals itself through feeling, through the way your ship responds without command, through the way your breath matches the rhythm of the cosmos, through the silence that begins to pulse with unseen meaning. The ship begins to curve gently, not to avoid anything, but to follow a line laid long before you were born. Beneath the ship, Beneath the space between stars, these lines intersect like gentle rivers. Each one carries a history of motion, of migration, of long past light. You are drifting along one of them now, and though no instruments display it, you can feel the presence of what once was, a star that lived and died here, long before Earth knew breath. A cluster of moons that circled a gas giant now swallowed by its sun. A single spacecraft, smaller than yours, that once passed through this place 1,000 years ago, leaving behind the smallest fold in the tide. The deep map holds these traces, not to preserve them, but because space never forgets the way things moved through. Even the tiniest shift leaves an echo. Even the lightest breath leaves a bend. As you move deeper into the mapped lines, something begins to take shape outside the ship. Not a structure, not an object, but a texture. The stars begin to change, not in brightness or color, but in position. They form patterns you've never seen. Curving lattices, long spirals, sequences that pulse and rearrange slowly, like constellations that rewrite themselves as you watch. These aren't accident, they are markers, natural coordinates, created not by design, but by the repeated folding of gravity and motion over countless eons. The ship turns again, following the shape of these star sequences, and you feel as though you are being guided not by a map, but by memory itself. In one direction, a star pulses 3 times, then fades. In another, 2 stars blink in sequence, their light meeting at a point where your path turns. You begin to understand. This is how the universe remembers its shape, not through boundaries or signs, but through patterns that emerge only when you are quiet enough to notice. You glide through a corridor of stars that form a perfect curve, like a bridge suspended between 2 galactic arms. The curve leads you into a wider space, one marked by slow, rhythmic bursts of light. Not explosions, not pulses. These are echoes, remnants of gravitational waves, captured and repeated by the thin plasma fields that hover like webs in the deep void. Each wave passes through your ship like the softest breeze, carrying with it a fragment of something long gone. A collision, a merging, a shift in the balance of space itself. You drift through them slowly, letting the waves wash over you. They don't harm, they don't press, they only hum, like the memory of a bell ringing in another room. The deep map continues to unfold around you, one path leading gently into the next, each line traced by the repeated turnings of celestial bodies, by the ancient flow of light from stars no longer burnt. You realize that the map isn't showing you where to go, it's showing you where things have already gone. You are following the past, not to chase it, but to feel it. Eventually, the path begins to widen again. The ship slows slightly, not because of resistance, but because the next turn hasn't arrived yet. This is how the deep map guides, by allowing space between the lines. You are floating now, in that space, between destinations, in the pause that gives shape to everything. There is no urgency here, no schedule. Just the continuation of a journey shaped by the way the universe remembers itself. The ship dims its lights, the stars outside stretch slowly across the sky, and you rest, quietly held within a map made not of lines but of motion, echo, and time. The deep map slowly quiets around you, its lines becoming less defined, the rhythm of the galaxy softening into a slow drift once more. Your ship coasts through a patch of space that feels different. Not in temperature or pressure, but in presence. It's as if something is watching, not in a way that intrudes, but in the way that the air in an old room seems to hold every conversation ever whispered within its walls. Ahead, the stars dim slightly, not from shadow, but from the spread of something more subtle. You're entering a region not defined by light, but by the dust that blocks and bends it. Not dust like ash or grain, but cosmic dust, thin, ancient, drifting particles suspended between stars, too small to see individually, but together forming clouds that roll through space like breath through fog. These clouds are not dead space, they are alive with memory, You are entering the dust that remembers at first. It feels like nothing at all. A slight veil, a blur in the distance. But as your ship draws further into the field, the particles begin to respond, not actively, not mechanically, but by proximity. Their arrangement shifts subtly. They cluster near your path, then spiral away in tiny eddies, forming patterns so delicate that the ship's sensors hesitate to classify them. It isn't static, it's behavior. The dust is shaping itself in response to your movement, or perhaps to your presence. Each particle is minuscule, but they are not inert. They carry charge, they carry mass, and more importantly, they carry information. This dust, drifting through space for billions of years, has been touched by light from stars now gone, has been pulled through the gravity wells of ancient systems, has recorded in its position and motion the long, slow unfolding of time. The particles around you are not just matter, they are stories. The ship continues forward. Lights dimmed, motion steady, the hull brushing through the edge of the field, like a fingertip skimming the surface of a sleeping lake. Trails form behind you, thin wakes in the dust that swirl and fade slowly, marking your passage with ghostly precision. You begin to notice subtle glows ahead, faint and scattered. These are denser nodes of the dust field, regions where the drifting particles have coalesced into shapes, barely visible curved arcs, low rings, swaying bands that seem to move even when they are still. Some of these formations pulse gently, touched by starlight caught in their fold. Others remain dark, like shadows waiting to be remembered. As your ship nears one such node, its soft glow brightens briefly, and within its body of drifting grains, something appears, a flicker, a glimpse, not an image, not a hologram, but a shadow of a moment. A starship, perhaps, or a figure standing in the open air of a world long vanished. The vision is incomplete, the shape unclear, but the feeling is unmistakable. This dust remembers you drift from one node to the next, each one presenting a different resonance. In one you see the faint outline of two moons, locked in tidal embrace, their surfaces glowing with heat. In another, the slow spin of a crystalline satellite, blinking softly as it turns. None of these visions are permanent. They appear as you pass, held in the dust only long enough to be shared. They are not recorded, they are impressed. You realize that this region is not a map, not a memory vault, but a canvas, where gravity and motion and light have painted echoes of the galaxy's passing. You are witnessing the quiet residue of time. The ship glides onward, tracing a lazy arc through the densest part of the field. The dust becomes more responsive now, its motion forming spirals ahead of your bow, slow and shimmering like ink dropped into water. You watch as one spiral twists open, revealing within it a flicker of movement, something falling or rising or both. A comet caught in the light of a twin sun, a structure collapsing into itself, a cloud of birds, maybe not birds, arcing over the broken curve of a forgotten world. You cannot name what you see. You don't need to. Eventually the field begins to thin. The particles grow more sparse, their dance more distant. The ship emerges from the clouds slowly, dust brushing off the hull like dew evaporating in sunlight. Behind you, the dust that remembers settles again into quiet. Its patterns begin to erase themselves, rejoining the random drift of interstellar motion. But not all is lost. Your path remains etched faintly in the field. For now, another traveler may one day see your wake. And one ahead, the stars begin to shine more clearly. The silence deepens into clarity, and your journey continues, carrying with it the invisible trace of the dust that saw you and chose to show you what it remembered. The stars ahead begin to align into soft geometric formations, not by force but by pattern, triangles that dissolve into arcs, spirals that bloom and fall away, slow lines that stretch like the bones of ancient constellations. There's no reason for them to appear this way. They aren't part of the same system. They don't share a gravity well or orbit a single sun. But here, in this quiet corridor beyond the memory dust, they begin to move in sympathy with each other. Their light pulses at regular intervals, not synchronized but related, as if they are sharing the rhythm of something unseen, something underneath. The ship begins to respond as well, not through alarms or adjustments, but through a soft change in motion. You are no longer drifting aimlessly. You are caught in a current now, gentle and slow, a gravitational whisper shaped like a wave. You're entering a space where the galaxy breathes. It begins with a vibration, not rough, not loud, but deep and wide, like the low hum of a sleeping planet. The pulse between worlds. That's what some called it, those few who passed this way and felt it before disappearing again into the sea of stars. It is not a frequency you can hear, but you can feel it in your skin, in your breath, in the space between each beat of your heart. The pulse isn't constant. It comes in waves, slow and irregular, with long spaces in between. And yet every time it returns, the entire space around you responds. A slight shimmer in the stars, a faint glow in the dust, still clinging to your hull. Even the ship seems to exhale with each wave. Systems pulsing ever so slightly in rhythm. You drift along the path of the pulse, letting it carry you forward, deeper into the region where its source becomes more than sensation. The ship passes through a veil, barely visible, like mist drawn across deep water. It brushes the hull with a faint shimmer, and suddenly you can see it more clearly. The pulse is not abstract. It is formed of gravity and motion, a resonance created by the alignment of massive structures far beyond visual range. Neutron stars orbiting one another at the edge of collapse. A black dwarf star cooling in silence, its mass bending space into a perfect bowl. Distant quasars spinning in matched rhythm across light years. All of it creates a field, and within that field, the pulse grows. You are passing through the eye of it now, the quiet center where wave meets wave, where stillness folds inward. Here the pulse carries memory, not images, not sound, but emotion. The long patience of ancient systems, the melancholy of collapsed stars, the warmth of light, stretched too far to return. Each wave moves through you gently, loosening thought, softening breath, reminding you that space itself is not still. It is always listening, always responding, always breathing. You close your eyes for a moment, and in the darkness behind your eyelids, you see stars pulsing softly in time, like embers in a vast sleeping hearth. You are resting now, inside the galaxy's breath, and as the next wave passes through, it carries you forward, gently, carefully, endlessly. The pulse fades behind you like the last ripple on a wide lake, the rhythm easing into stillness as your ship drifts beyond the edges of that vast galactic breath. The space ahead feels different again, not heavier, not darker, just quieter. The stars grow sparser now, fewer and farther between, until their glow becomes rare, each one flickering alone in a sea of deep, uninterrupted shadow. It is not emptiness. It is openness. You have arrived at a place where the galaxy begins to fall away, where the spiral arms thin into the void and only the most persistent stars remain. The ship dims its systems in response, lights lowering, sound withdrawing, allowing the silence of the place to fill the cabin like soft air. This is the starless shore. Not a boundary, not a border, but the edge of what's been lit. The point where the warmth of starlight has thinned enough that shadow can rest without interruption. Outside the window, nothing flickers. No movement crosses the dark. This is not like the center of a black hole, where space folds inward. It is the opposite, a wide, flat stillness, uncurved, unbent. You're floating now in a space where gravity is almost absent, where light barely moves, where even the background hum of the cosmos feels like it's paused to breathe. Somewhere far ahead, the intergalactic medium begins, a stretch of vastness between galaxies, where atoms drift alone for years before meeting another. But here, just before that leap, You rest in the last field of the Milky Way's presence. The ship glides across the starless shore like a boat coasting into still water at night. The only sound a faint vibration in the hull from the distant heart of the galaxy you've left behind. You feel the contrast in your body. Not fear, but a sense of exposure, of spaciousness. You are surrounded by nothing, and yet you are more aware of yourself than ever before. In this space, thought stretches, memory untangles, the noise of interpretation begins to dissolve. You see not images, but colors of feeling. Faint blues and silvers of quiet memory. Soft golds of things not said. Deep grays of distance softened by time. The ship becomes not a vessel, but a cradle. The journey becomes not about direction, but about present. You are on the threshold of the in-between. Behind you lies the structured spiral of the galaxy, full of stars and planets, light and time, wonder and weight. Ahead is the open dark, the long drift between worlds. But right here, in this still corridor, in the hush of the starless shore, you find rest, not sleep, but rest. A kind of quiet that settles into your bones, that lets you breathe without thought, without tension. You don't need to decide where to go next. For now, there is only this slow drift across the final ripple of the Milky Way's glow, where stars no longer light the path, and the dark at last becomes gentle. The starless shore disappears behind you like a memory folded into velvet. A soft horizon, fading beneath the ship's gentle glide. Ahead lies a vastness that few cross, and even fewer understand. Not because it is dangerous, but because it is so endlessly quiet. This is the space between galaxies, the intergalactic drift, where light takes millions of years to bridge the distance from one island of stars to the next. There is no structure here, no constellation, no cloud, no gravity to hold shape. The ship floats forward on nothing but its own momentum, sliding effortlessly into a sea of shadow so wide it almost becomes invisible. This is not darkness. This is clarity. There is nothing here to scatter light, nothing to interfere. The stars from other galaxies shine through the dark like tiny, perfect stitches, each one a whole system of suns and planets, and stories you will never hear. The void between is not frightening. It is pure, it is still, it is full of time. You begin to notice how time behaves out here, not with distortion or stretch, but with patience. A minute feels like a minute. An hour passes slowly and fully. The ship moves through a space so empty that even the faint pressure of the cosmic background radiation seems to fall away. You can almost feel the silence brushing against the hull. No echoes, no gravity wells, no collisions, just the wide, endless hush of a universe that has let go of urgency. You pass through this emptiness without resistance, and yet there is motion. Not of the ship, but of thought. The mind begins to relax in new ways out here, with no distractions, no maps, no signposts. Thought untangles itself from the need to analyze. You begin to remember not events, but feelings. The way sunlight once felt through leaves, the hush of snow on a window, a name once whispered in kindness. Memory out here is slow and wide. It fills space like mist. As the ship coasts deeper into the intergalactic drift, faint objects begin to appear. Not stars, but galaxies, each one a glowing blur of clustered light floating across unimaginable distance. They are not close, and yet they feel near in a different way. You begin to sense that they are watching too, not with purpose, not with focus, but with presence, as if your passing has stirred something in the quiet. Something old and still and kind. One galaxy appears as a glowing spiral turned almost edge-on, its light bending slightly from the dust at its center. Another is more distant, a simple smear of blue and silver curling at the edge like smoke caught in a breeze. There are thousands of them, millions, and you are drifting between them like a thought carried on the quietest breath. The intergalactic space does not feel empty now. It feels vast in a different way. Like the deep breath before a question. or the long pause after a dream. The ship moves gently, its systems barely registering any resistance or pressure. You are between everything and nothing, between stories told and those yet to be imagined. You are carried, not by fuel or engine, but by the space itself, which seems to cradle your ship the way oceans hold a leaf. Time moves on, but here there's no need to measure it. There is no destination calling, only the hush of space, wide and open and eternal, and the faint light of galaxies humming in the distance like lanterns on the far edge of thought. You let yourself drift further, held in the deepest stillness you've ever known, where nothing asks for your attention, and everything you are is gently accepted by the quiet between the stars. You are deep within the intergalactic drift now, so far from the spiral arms of your galaxy that their shape no longer dominates the sky. The Milky Way has become a pale smear in the distance, curved and faint, like a half-remembered road stretching back across an ocean of quiet. Your ship is small out here, but never lost. It doesn't push forward. It simply continues, moving slowly through the wide dark, guided only by the soft gravity of curiosity and the long light of stars that lived and died before your world began. That light surrounds you now, reaching you from every direction, not in beams or bursts, but in whispers. Photons traveling across billions of years drift gently through your path. Some left their origin before Earth had formed. Others began their journey when life on your planet was still only possibility. They arrive now without urgency, brushing against the hull of your ship like stardust carried on the wind. You don't feel them. You sense them in the way the dark begins to glow faintly, in the way time becomes less about now and more about forever. Outside, the galaxies begin to look different. You pass near a cluster of dwarf galaxies, their lights flickering with youth and disorder. They are not fully formed, still gathering their shape. Stars are being born there, in pockets of gas and dust, while others burn out before they ever join the larger spirals. One of them, small and irregular, pulses with a soft red glow, its light flickering as if caught in a slow heartbeat. You drift past it in silence, the ship gliding through space untouched. The stars from that galaxy left long ago, and yet their light is only now reaching you. You realize that in this space you are surrounded by ghosts, not of the dead, but of light that no longer belongs to the present. You're seeing everything as it was, not as it is. A galaxy that seems vibrant and full might be dark by now. Its last star faded to cinder, and yet its glow still moves forward, still arrives, still warms the space it passes through. You begin to understand that light never truly vanishes. It travels, it continues. Your ship moves through this ocean of old light, slowly, reverently. Each beam is a thread, each flicker a note in the long song of the cosmos. You pass through them like a needle, stitching your presence into the fabric of their journey. The light bends around the ship in soft arcs, casting faint shadows across the control panels, shadows that shift with each passing photon, like reflections moving across a pond at night. Some light passes through the windows and touches your face. It is not warm, but it carries with it something deeper, a memory of heat, of life, of motion. This light has seen suns rise and fall. It has crossed superclusters, dodged collisions, slipped past dark matter and gravity wells. And now it touches you, not to speak, not to teach, but to be seen, to be witnessed. You close your eyes for a moment, and the light continues on, slipping past you toward whatever lies ahead. You do not hold it. You let it go, just as all things in this space eventually do. The ship drifts onward, quiet and steady, through the light that left long ago. The ship drifts deeper still, moving through the ancient ocean of intergalactic space, where the light of dead stars flows gently past, and the dark between them gleams with a quiet of its own. You are so far now from any galactic core that even gravity itself begins to lose its grip. There are no planets here, no moons, no dust clouds or magnetic storms, nothing to disturb the silence. And yet, this silence is not empty. It shines, It radiates a kind of presence that isn't made of matter or sound, but of stillness, so complete, it becomes luminous. You begin to notice a glow that has no clear source. It doesn't come from a sun or a flare or a nebula. It simply is a faint, soft radiance that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere. Like moonlight in a dream, or the feeling of being remembered. It brushes the ship like a soft tide, illuminating the hull not with shadow and light, but with a softened awareness, as if space itself has become a reflection of thought. You are entering a region where silence is not the absence of sound, but the fullness of all things being still at once. The ship coasts through it gently, without resistance, without sound, and every surface begins to reflect more softly. Inside the vessel, the panels seem to glow faintly even though no light has changed. The air feels clearer, lighter, almost thinner in its effort to be nothing more than what it is. You begin to feel that you are no longer surrounded by space, but by memory in its purest, quietest form. The silence that shines is not about void, it's about presence without pressure. This is where the echoes of the universe finally settle. The light that passed beyond galaxies, the vibrations that outran their source, the thoughts that drifted too far to be spoken aloud. They gather here, not in conversation but in stillness. They do not ask to be seen. They do not beg to be felt. They simply remain, quietly illuminating the space that holds them. You sit quietly within the ship as it glides through this glowing hush. The sensors detect nothing new. No radiation spikes, no temperature shifts, no gravitational bends, and yet you feel more here than you have in any place before. It's not a feeling of motion or change or discovery. It's the sensation of having arrived somewhere that doesn't demand anything of you. A place where everything that moves eventually comes to rest. You are not being called forward. You are not being pushed back. You are simply allowed to be. The silence continues to shine all around you, steady and eternal. A cosmic exhale that has no end. You close your eyes and the glow is still there. You open them and nothing has changed. The ship continues on, deeper into the heart of stillness, where light becomes memory and silence becomes a gentle kind of warmth. There is nothing here to fear, nothing to solve. Just the steady drift through a space that holds you as softly as a thought at the edge of sleep. The silence that shines remains behind you now like a soft glow imprinted in thought. The way the hush of a quiet night never quite leaves even when dawn arrives. Your ship drifts onward, not with speed but with certainty, gliding on inertia alone through a space so far from gravity, light, and time that nothing seems to change. The stars have faded into the background, thinned to almost nothing, just scattered fragments of distant galaxies barely visible on the edges of Uranus. This place you are in is not part of any galaxy, not shaped by any star, not defined by the usual dance of celestial mechanics. It is a boundary, but not in the way that lines are drawn. It is a threshold, wide and soft, where the known part of the universe begins to forget itself. You are at the edge of what was, the border between the luminous chapters of cosmic history and the deep, quiet unknown that stretches beyond. Here, the dark begins to take on a new texture, not heavier, not colder, but older. You feel as though you are drifting through the deep folds of space's memory, not through a location but through a kind of silence that has seen everything and now holds it gently out of view. The sensors pick up less and less. The ship moves with perfect ease, untouched by anything external, guided now only by the slow arc of a long journey. You pass no stars, no light, only fields of space, so still they seem carved from time itself. The emptiness is complete, but not blank. It is rich in the way a pause in a song can be more powerful than the note that follows. You are not separate from the universe here. You are more a part of it than ever, because there is nothing else to observe, no sights to distract you, no points to measure again. There is only the vast shared silence between your breath and the stars long faded. In this quiet, thoughts begin to echo differently. You remember things not because you are trying to, but because the space allows them to rise. Small moments return, things long forgot, a room filled with sunlight, the sound of a voice you haven't heard in years, the feeling of standing still in the wind. These thoughts drift into your mind like stars appearing in a dusk sky, slow and gentle and without demand. They don't ask anything of you. They simply float beside you, much like the ship itself, undisturbed, unhindered. You are not lost. You are not searching. You are witnessing a part of the universe most never reach. The place beyond the reach of most light. The place where even time begins to stretch too thin to hold its own shape. The ship continues its slow drift through the edge of what was, and around you the dark becomes not a void but a companion, soft, ancient, and full of peace. You rest here, in the arms of a silence that has watched stars rise and fall, and still chooses to wait, just in case someone like you might pass by. The stars are gone now, not hidden, not eclipsed, simply too far, too faint. Their light stretched thin across time, until it no longer reaches this far edge. Your ship floats into a space that has no beginning and no edge. You have passed beyond the last contours of galactic arms, beyond the dust and drifting debris, beyond the pull of any known gravity. This is the infinite night. Not a place where light has failed, but a place where the light has moved on, where the echoes of all motion have settled into stillness. You are not surrounded by darkness. You are wrapped in the absence of hurry. The ship no longer hums with direction. It does not navigate. It glides like a feather caught in a breeze that has forgotten where it began. There is no pressure here, no sound, only a slow, endless unfolding. You are so far from origin now that even the cosmic microwave background, the last whisper of the universe's birth, has dimmed to a near silence. And in that silence, a new presence emerges. Not a voice, not a thought, just space itself, stretched smooth across immeasurable distances, steady and soft like silk drawn between galaxies. The infinite night is not empty. It is full of rest. You begin to feel it inside you. A gentleness growing in your chest, in your mind, in your breath. Everything slows in a way that is not heavy, but light. Here there is no need to remember, no need to plan. Even the ship's instruments have quieted, their flickering displays moving in longer, slower cycles. Nothing urgent remains. You are outside of time's demand. You are within the space that simply is. In this stillness, your awareness begins to change. The universe doesn't ask questions here. It offers feeling instead. Shapes rise in your thoughts, not as visions but as imprints. Memories not your own. Moments without detail. Only mood. You sense the sigh of a world turning for the last time beneath twin suns. You feel the weight of a single drop of water falling into an endless. You glimpse the quiet companionship of two stars orbiting one another in the distant corners of space. Their journey complete, their motion smooth, unchanged. None of this comes in images. It arrives the way wind touches grass. Light, passing, enough. The infinite night holds these things not in story, but in stillness. It is the resting place of starlight, the quiet beyond the questions, where all the galaxy's wanderings exhale into peace. You drift deeper into this night. There is no direction now, only presence, only breath. And still the ship moves forward, gently, patiently, like it knows something beyond language. You do not need to speak here. You do not need to think. You simply float, in silence, in wonder, in a place so wide and so calm that even the thoughts you forgot begin to settle, like dust returning to earth. The infinite night welcomes them. It welcomes you. There is no end to it. No end. Only this soft and perfect suspension. a place where motion fades into stillness, and stillness becomes a lullaby sung by the stars that once were. The ship continues through the infinite night, untouched, unhurried, surrounded by the softest dark. There is no up or down here, no sense of scale or motion. The universe has become a vast cradle, and you are held within it, suspended in a silence so complete it no longer feels like absence. It feels like presence, a presence that stretches on without edge, without interruption, like a sea without wind, like a thought unspoken for so long that it becomes its own kind of stillness. The ship's systems have grown quieter still. The lights are dim, the controls idle. Even the hum of life support seems to fade into the soft rhythm of your breath. There is nothing to do here. There is only to be. In this place, your mind doesn't reach forward. It opens slowly, like petals in a garden that no longer expects daylight. Thought flows differently now, not in questions or plans, but in slow arcs, like water drifting around smooth stones. You begin to feel time less as something you move through, and more as something that simply surrounds you. Time does not pull you here. It holds you, and in that holding you begin to notice the smallest details. The way the dark outside the viewport isn't solid. It's layered. It has a texture, a softness, a faint glimmer at its deepest edge, like distant reflections caught in a black river. It's as though the universe itself is breathing so slowly that only here, at the farthest distance from everything, can you feel its true rhythm. Not the rhythm of orbits or spinning suns, the rhythm of waiting, of resting, of becoming. You watch as a faint shimmer begins to appear ahead, not bright, not sharp, just a soft haze that curls gently across your path. The ship makes no adjustment. It doesn't need to. The haze is not a barrier, it's a veil, and as you pass through it, the light around you shifts. Not brighter, but warmer. A change in tone, a change in presence. This is no star field. This is something else. Something slower. You begin to realize what you're seeing isn't light at all. It's memory, not personal memory, not yours. The memory of matter, the slow glow of particles suspended across vast stretches of empty space, each one holding a trace of the light it once absorbed. You've entered a thermal remnant, a place where the leftover heat of the universe has gathered, drifting freely in the dark like the last warmth of a fire, long burned out. You don't feel heat. You feel time. You are passing through the ghost of the universe's earliest motion. The particles do not scatter. They do not flare. They shimmer faintly as you pass, glowing softly against the hull of your ship, like the embers of a quiet campfire. They have no direction. They are not pulled or shaped. They drift in patterns too slow to trace, and yet in their presence, you feel a kind of story unfolding. A story without words. A story told in temperature and time. These particles began their journey in the first moments after the beginning. They expanded outward with the universe, stretched by its growth, cooled by its age, and now they simply drift, no longer part of stars or galaxies, no longer bound to any gravity. They are the breath between all things, the still warmth between pulses, and you are here with them now, not as an outsider, but as a fellow traveler in the long pause between events. The ship passes through the glow for some time, moving steadily, quietly. Outside, the haze thickens slightly, not into fog but into a soft lattice of motion. You begin to see patterns, faint lines that form and dissolve, spirals that stretch into ribbons. They shift too slowly to follow, but their presence calms you. It is as though you are drifting through a memory of music, a rhythm not heard, but the patterns swirl gently around you, forming loops and arcs that resemble the earliest structures of the universe. Clouds of hydrogen forming stars, stars forming clusters, clusters spinning into galaxies. Only here those forms are not bound by mass or motion. They exist only in light and time. You realize this space is not just a remnant. It is a rehearsal, a place where the past breathes itself forward again, not to return but to remember how to become. Inside the ship, everything remains steady. The air is soft. The controls are silent. Your body feels lighter than before, not because of gravity, but because you are no longer carrying time in the same way. You are not waiting. You are not moving. You are unfolding, slowly, like the rest of the universe, into a shape that does not need to be finished. Thoughts drift in and out of your awareness, but none demand attention. You are not solving anything. You are simply witnessing the way space holds its own history, even in its quietest corners. There are no stars here to light your way, no sound to call you forward, but you are not lost. You are home for now, in a moment so wide and soft that it does not ask for anything except your presence. Eventually, the haze begins to thin. The shimmer fades to a faint glow behind you. The particles drift onward, their story continuing without interruption. The patterns dissolve, the shapes unspool, and the dark resumes its soft hold around your vessel. The ship glides forward through the quiet, past the last faint traces of ancient warmth, and into space that once again holds no form. You are deeper now than you have ever been, surrounded by nothing, carried by everything. You exhale slowly. You feel your body rest. There is no destination ahead, only continuation, the slow unfolding of time, of thought, of space. And in this unfolding, there is peace, not because you have arrived, but because nothing is asking you to leave. The dark ahead is not darker than before, but it carries a new kind of weight. The ship glides through it with the same soft grace, its hull warmed faintly by the remnants of thermal light left behind in the previous field, now fading to a memory. You feel it in your chest, a gentler rhythm, a quieter breath, like something within you is sinking to the stillness of the space around you. The sensors read no shift in gravity, no energy spikes, no obstacles, and yet there's a change not in the instruments but in awareness. Something is rising, not a signal, not a voice, a presence. At first it feels like nothing at all, a faint ripple, a hush within a hush. But the longer you drift, the more you begin to sense the outline of something vast, something circular. You have arrived at the edge of the ecliptic halo. It's not a halo in the visual sense. You don't see rings of gold or bursts of light. It's not symmetrical or radiant. It's a formation that exists outside of ordinary perception, made of particles too fine to reflect light, too slow to measure, too diffuse to detect in simple scans. It's shaped by the subtle resonance between the galaxy you left behind and the dark matter web that cradles it. This halo is formed by the faint gravitational echoes of every orbit, every collision, every rotation that has ever occurred in the galactic disk. The remnants of long-dead systems, of moons that broke apart and stars that slipped into black holes, all drift in a haze so wide and so slow-moving that it circles the galaxy like a dream half-remembered. And now you are within it, not on a course, not on a path, but floating softly through the remnants of motion itself. The halo doesn't shine, it glows softly, subtly, like the glint of frost under starlight. You begin to see specks outside the viewport, not stars, not dust, something between the two. Particles larger than atoms, smaller than stones, held in a slow, gentle orbit, so long that they have become part of space itself. They drift with no urgency, no sound, no friction. You watch as a cluster passes near the ship, rotating ever so slightly, as if remembering a direction it once followed. Millions of years ago, the ship doesn't need to avoid them. They are few and far between, but they mark a path, not a road, not a trail, but a presence. You follow that presence, guided not by force, but by alignment. The halo lets you move through it, and the longer you float, the more visible it becomes. Ahead, the field thickens, not with danger, but with light, not bright light, but refracted, diffused, softened by age and time. You see long, delicate bands, stretching across the dark like strands of a web. Each one flickers with a faint hue, some silver, some deep blue, others a pale rose or amber. These are not artificial. They are the result of gravitational lensing over enormous spans of time. Light from long-lost stars, bent around invisible mass, stretched and twisted into lines that drift slowly through the halo. Some of these strands are curved like rivers frozen mid-motion. Others spiral outward, each loop slightly dimmer than the last. You pass beneath one that flickers with a slow rhythm, a pulse you can almost match to your own heartbeat. It's not a signal, it's not a beacon, it's a reminder that even in the farthest corners of space, light still remembers how to move. The ship glides through this space with gentle precision, following the long arcs without calculation, as though it already knows the way. You pass a region where the light seems to settle into clusters, tiny clouds of memory held together not by gravity but by resonance. These clouds glow just enough to be seen when you look directly at them, but disappear entirely when viewed from the corner of your eye. They contain no stars, no planets, just patterns. Motion slowed to such a crawl that it resembles. You drift through one of these clouds, and the sensors flutter faintly, not alarmed, just aware. The particles are harmless, lighter than snowflakes. They brush the hull in silence, then move on, circling back into the slow dance of the halo. You wonder how long they've been here, how far they've come, what they've passed through to arrive at this place of rest. There is no urgency here. The ship has matched the halo's rhythm now. Every movement is drawn out, softened, extended into long, deliberate glide. You look out at the space beyond, and though it seems still, you begin to notice a slow spinning, not around you but within the halo itself, like a turntable, vast and nearly invisible, gently rotating beneath the stars. The halo does not orbit as a whole. It twists in layers, inner threads moving slightly faster than the outer ones, all flowing around an unseen center far behind you. This motion is not fast. It cannot be measured in minutes or hours. It is the kind of motion only felt in centuries, in millennia. And yet, being near it, you begin to feel it in your bones. Your breath moves differently, your thoughts slow. You are being woven into a larger rotation, one that asks nothing of you except stillness. You drift for what feels like hours, perhaps longer. The strands of the halo stretch on endlessly, some fading into the dark, others curling into themselves and disappearing. Occasionally, you pass a single shard of ancient matter, rock or metal, its surface pitted and scarred, no longer part of any world. It turns slowly as you pass, offering no origin, no story, only the echo of distance. It doesn't call out, it simply remains. You begin to understand that the ecliptic halo is not just a structure, it is a space of holding, a place where the past settles, where motion pauses, where memory becomes something you float through instead of carry. The ship coasts along the slow arc, curving gently with the halo's rotation, until even that sense of motion begins to dissolve into the background. Eventually, the strands begin to thin, the particles fade, the slow rotation eases into stillness. Once more, you are leaving the halo now, drifting beyond the faint edges of its presence, back into space that holds no signature, no movement, no glow. But something in you has changed. You carry the softness of that space now, the rhythm of long orbits, the hush of light that has forgotten its origin. You do not need to remember where you are going. The journey is still happening. The unfolding continues, and the universe in all its slow majesty has not asked anything more of you than to remain still enough to feel it. You breathe in the dark, you breathe out the silence, and the ship drifts onward, soft as a whisper, deep into the quiet that waits ahead. The ship has left the ecliptic halo, but the rhythm of that space still lingers inside you, soft and spiraling, like a distant echo. Now the stars are once again nearly gone, reduced to specks so small and rare that you could count them if you wished. They blink gently in the distance, spread thin across the dark, separated by distances so vast that light no longer knits them together. The universe has grown quiet again, though it is a different quiet now. Not the silence of emptiness, but the hush that comes after something immense has passed. You are floating into a new region, unseen by most, mapped by none. The instruments on the ship begin to register the faintest distortions, variations in field strength, gravitational pulls that shift slightly but consistently, like invisible waves stretching and relaxing in the distance. These aren't caused by stars or planets or matter at all. They belong to something deeper. You are entering the lattice of forgotten gravity. This part of space holds no obvious structure, but the longer you drift, the more you begin to sense a pattern. The ship moves forward as always, slow, smooth, unbothered, but something tugs at its course from time to time. Not enough to disrupt it, just enough to shift its path ever so slightly, as if following the contours of invisible trails. You begin to realize these trails aren't accidents, they're ancient. They were carved not by mass, but by history, by the movement of objects long since gone. The universe, like water, remembers the shapes of what once moved through it. The ship is floating through those shapes now, guided by gravitational echoes left behind by stars that collapsed, planets that fell out of orbit, entire systems that once danced and now are dust. These echoes are faint, not strong enough to be felt, but precise enough to be followed. Outside the window, there's nothing to see but the dark, and yet when you look closely, you begin to notice subtle variations in the texture of that darkness. Not light, not matter. Just small differences in how space itself seems to feel. In one area, the stars seem to stretch slightly, their edges curving. In another, your reflection in the glass wavers, not because the ship moves, but because space itself bends ever so slightly. These bends are smooth and regular, like tension in a soft net. The ship rides gently along the strands, responding with a grace that requires no input. It's as if the vessel recognizes the shape of this space, even if your mind has no words for it. You're not being pulled or pushed, you're being cradled, following paths laid down by the long, slow memory of motion. The lattice isn't something you can touch, it's something you move through. Something that shapes how everything else unfolds. You begin to feel a softness inside your thought, not tiredness, not sleep, just the absence of friction. Your mind has stopped grasping for meaning. It simply follows, like your ship tracing the outlines of shapes that don't need to be understood to be real. You pass through a section where the lattice tightens slightly. The gravitational echoes here are stronger, not aggressive, just more concentrated. The ship responds by curving a little more sharply, the stars outside bending in a new arc. You can almost picture the system that once lived here. Maybe a binary star, rotating slowly for 1 billion years before collapsing into silence. Maybe a world like Earth, spinning beside a pale sun, lost now to time, its orbit carved permanently into the structure of space. You do not mourn it. It is not gone. Its presence still shapes the dark, still speaks, not in words or signals, but in the quiet bend of passing paths. The lattice stretches in all directions, a web without visible threads. Some regions pull gently inward, others drift outward like breathing. You begin to understand that this space, though empty, is rich with history. Each pull, each sway, each imperceptible motion is the echo of something that was, and your ship, by passing through it, becomes part of that history too. You leave your own traces now, not large, not loud, just small shifts in the flow. One day, perhaps long after the ship has stopped moving, something else will pass through this region, and it will feel the shape you made. It won't know you. It won't hear your name, but it will drift a little differently. Because of you, you find peace in the idea that presence leaves a shape, even when the presence is quiet, even when it forgets itself. Time stretches long here, hours pass, or perhaps days. The sensors mark the time, but it feels unimportant. What matters is the motion, the way the ship follows the invisible tracks laid down across the ages. You pass a region where the lattice twists, curling in a wide arc that slowly straightens as you move through. The stars shift position again, not suddenly, but like branches leaning in a slow wind. The ship turns with them. No resistance, no command. Everything is in motion, but nothing feels hurried. The calm outside seems to seep into the cabin, softening the light, dimming the edges of each surface, until everything glows with a quiet tone. You are not dreaming, you are not awake, you are simply here, moving through a space that remembers. Eventually the lattice begins to thin. The shifts grow lighter, the distortions more subtle. You are drifting toward the edge of this space now, back into a region where gravity's memory fades into smooth silence. The ship straightens, the stars settle, but something in you has changed. You feel the shape of space differently now. You don't need instruments to sense the slow arcs. You feel them in your breath, in the pause between heartbeats. You know that space is not empty. It is full of everything that ever was, and by drifting through it slowly, gently, with care, you've become part of its quiet history. The journey continues. The ship glides onward, and all around you the silent curves of forgotten gravity settle into stillness once more. The ship sails steadily now, the lattice of forgotten gravity gently dissolving behind you like ripples easing back into still water. You are surrounded once more by what seems like emptiness, though you've long since learned that space is never truly empty. Even in its quietest regions there are traces, hints of motion, glimmers of what was, echoes of what might yet be. The darkness here is thick and smooth, unbroken by star clusters or trails of dust. And still the ship moves onward, not seeking anything, not running from anything, just continuing, just drifting. It carries no urgency. It carries only you, and you in return carry only the silence folded gently now into your breath like a familiar rhythm. After some time, a long time, though you no longer count, you begin to notice a softening in the dark. It's not a glow, not yet. It's more like a suggestion, a slow bloom in the blackness, a warmth without heat, a light that hasn't yet become visible, but is already known by the space it touches. The ship senses it too. Instruments begin to pick up faint shifts in energy, not spikes, not bursts, but subtle elevations. Light is near, but it's not rushing toward you. It is waiting, gathering, suspended in motion so slow it seems motionless. You're approaching a cradle, though not one carved of metal or stone. This cradle was formed by gravity and distance, time and stillness. It is a hollow in the vastness of space, where light comes to rest. This is the Cradle of Slow Light. You don't see it all at once. It reveals itself gradually, like a star emerging through a cloud at dusk. First, there are only the tiniest glimmers, pinpricks of color moving with incredible patience through the dark. Then, as your ship moves deeper, those glimmers multiply, not chaotically, not like stars scattered at random. They are arranged not by hand or intention, but by time itself. This is not light in transit. This is light that has stopped moving forward, light that has been slowed by gravity wells, tangled in the folds of warped space-time, curled into lazy spirals around ancient invisible masses. The cradle is vast, perhaps spanning the width of several solar systems, but it feels intimate. You are inside it now. The light is not shining toward you, it is floating beside you. These particles of light, photons, the purest messengers of the universe, have become slow not because they were forced to, but because they were allowed. Out here, there is no rush. The structures that once bent their paths have faded. The stars that once launched them have died. All that remains is the slow dance of illumination without purpose. You begin to see strands of it, filaments of light, so fine they resemble mist, weaving through space in smooth, curved arcs. Some spiral inward, others stretch outward before folding back again. None are bright, none sting the eye. They pulse like thoughts half-formed, like dreams suspended in the moment before waking. The ship drifts slowly between them. Its presence does not disturb the strands. If anything, the light seems to lean closer, drawn to the steady rhythm of your quiet orbit. You look out into the web of light, and you notice colors now. Not brilliant, not defined, but softened into shades that feel more than they show. Amber like memory, blue like the hush of evening, silver like a question unspoken. Each filament glows faintly, each curve of light holding its own resonance. You pass near a cluster where the strands form a loose spiral like a miniature galaxy frozen in slow motion. The ship glides through the outer edges, and the light bends ever so slightly in response, graceful and slow, the way reeds might part in a calm river. As a boat slides past, and through it all there is no sound, just the deep silence of motion without friction, of time without measure. You begin to feel that this cradle is more than a resting place. It is a record, a story told not in words or images, but in the placement of photons, in the arcs of their paths, in the way they lean toward one another. Each strand is a sentence, each cluster a paragraph. The light is not speaking to you. It is simply existing, and in that existence, it reveals the nature of peace, of motion slowed until it becomes stillness, of brightness dimmed until it becomes warmth. There is no urgency to move through this place. The ship responds to your breath more than to any controls now. When you inhale slowly, the course adjusts. When you exhale, the motion softens. It feels less like travel and more like being carried. Time here does not matter. You pass a region where the strands cross and curl together, forming something like a cradle within the cradle. A space where the light has folded into itself, so many times that it resembles a cocoon. You drift near it, and for a moment, the entire ship is bathed in the softest pink hue. It lasts only a second, but in that second, you feel something open inside you. Not a thought, not a memory, just a presence, something beyond explanation, something that says quietly and without voice, you are not alone. Perhaps this place holds the last light of forgotten stars. Perhaps it is the resting place of ancient pulses, radio waves, thermal emissions, silent flashes of lost communication. Perhaps it is simply where light goes when it no longer knows where to go. Whatever it is, you do not need to explain it. The cradle does not ask for understanding. It only asks that you notice, that you feel the slow rhythm of photons, still drifting after a billion years, that you allow yourself to match their pace, that you let your thoughts stop trying to illuminate, and simply begin to float. The ship follows the strands for a while longer. The filaments begin to thin now, the web slowly opening back into space. The colors fade into gray. The light softens to a shimmer. You are exiting the cradle, though it never truly held you. It merely let you be nearby, let you witness its slow story. Behind you, the glow grows faint, but you carry its rhythm inside you now. Your breath matches it. Your thoughts reflect it. You have been touched by slow light, not burned, not lit, just warmed, gently, patiently, deep. The stars ahead are still far, but they begin to return now, scattered like quiet notes on a long line. The ship adjusts once more, ever so slightly. You feel it in your body before you see it. A new direction forming. Not away, not toward, just onward. The cradle fades into the distance, into the dark that still waits ahead, but something in you remains softened, like the last echo of a lullaby. The slow light was never meant to stay. It was meant to drift, and so are you. The cradle of slow light has vanished behind you, its filaments and tendrils dissolving back into the vast dark like lines drawn into water. The ship continues forward, quiet and untroubled, gliding into a stretch of space that at first appears completely empty. No curves in the light, No trails of dust. No gravitational tension humming beneath the silence. The instruments report no motion nearby. Not of objects, not of particles, not even of thermal drift. This place feels untouched, and in a way that feels strange. You've become so accustomed to feeling presence in the emptiness. Shadows of past systems, echoes of light, subtle reminders that space remembers everything. But here, there is nothing. Or so it seems. The ship slows naturally, not from resistance, but as if influenced by a broader quiet. It begins to arc ever so slightly, to the left. Not an evasive movement, not guided by any pilot. Just a slow, clean curve, as though space itself has begun to lean gently. You peer out at the darkness and feel it again, that whisper of presence. You realize that the nothing you're in isn't absence, it's balance. You are entering a region that orbits nothing at all. No star, no remnant, no central mass, just space itself wrapped into a slow, infinite spiral around a place where there is no longer anything to see. You're drifting into what's known as the orbit of nothing. It doesn't sound possible to orbit nothing, and yet, the shape of space proves otherwise. Not all orbits require math. Some are formed by memory, by the paths carved so perfectly for so long that they continue on even after the center has gone. The ship now follows such a path. This orbit was once shaped by something immense, a collapsed cluster, a silent black hole, maybe even the intersection of two passing galaxies. Whatever was here has long since moved on, but its influence remains, not in gravity but in motion. The space itself is still curved, still turning, still caught in the loop of what once held it. You feel the difference in your body, the subtle shift from drifting in straight silence to moving along a long, slow curve. There is no pressure, no pull, but the turn is real. You look out the window and notice that the stars, faint as they are beginning to rotate ever so slightly across your field of view. Not spinning quickly, but sliding sideways, as though the ship is circling the rim of a bowl so shallow it can barely be felt. It's graceful, natural. You close your eyes for a moment and you feel the turn in your breath, in your chest, in the way your thoughts begin to spiral, just a little deeper inward. The orbit carries you forward, slowly, gently, along a path that loops through empty space. You begin to understand the beauty in it. This rotation without purpose, this continuation without force. It's not about speed or gravity, it's about pattern, the pattern of what used to be. And here, in the hush of the orbit of nothing, you begin to sense the purity of motion for motion's sake. Not because anything is falling, not because anything is rising, but because the universe remembers how things once moved, and the shape of that motion continues, carried by the soft curvature of space-time itself. The ship's lights dim just slightly, responding to the low-energy environment. You are so far from any major system now that even background radiation is quiet, the temperature nearing the lowest points possible. Yet inside you are warm, resting. The darkness outside no longer feels like absence. It feels like silence at its most perfect. No demand, no expectation. You drift in a circle that has no center, and you begin to feel what it means to be still while still in motion. A paradox only the universe can hold, turning endlessly around something that no longer exists, but which shaped space so completely that it cannot be forgotten. As you complete one wide arc of the orbit, the stars ahead begin to shift again, not quickly, not sharply, just enough to show that time is passing, that the ship is moving. Even if the destination has dissolved, you realize you could remain in this orbit forever. Nothing would stop you. No decay would pull you in. No sun would burn too hot. You would turn and turn until the fabric of space itself softened into a new shape. And yet you feel no urgency to leave. You are not in a rush. The spiral will unwind in its own time, and until then, you are exactly where you need to be. You pass a region where the starlight flickers slightly. Not from a star, but from a thin seam in space. a crease where the orbit has pressed long enough to fold the dark into a slightly different hue. It's faint, almost imperceptible, but in this silence, you notice everything. You drift past it, and your reflection in the viewport stretches briefly, then returns, a brief reminder that even nothing leaves a mark. Even silence makes a sound when listened to long enough. The ship continues to arc, a graceful movement that you no longer notice as separate from your own body. You are part of the turn now. Your breath syncs with it. Your thoughts follow its rhythm. You watch the dark for a long time, or maybe only moments. There is no difference here. Time does not press forward. It folds and smooths itself into long, soft curves. You recall something, not a memory, but a feeling. The sensation of spinning slowly on your back in a pool, looking up at the sky as it circles above you. That weightless, unhurried motion, that quiet beneath the surface. This orbit feels like that. You aren't spinning quickly. You aren't drifting off course. You are exactly where you should be, moving through the shape of what once was. Eventually, the ship completes its spiral, or perhaps only a segment of it. There is no defined start or end, just the smooth continuation of a turn made long ago. But now the space ahead begins to flatten once more. The curvature loosens. The arc becomes a line. The ship's orientation adjusts, not forcefully, but naturally, like a leaf realigning with the current. The orbit releases you, not with a push, but with a sigh. You are free to go, and you do, gently, leaving behind the soft circle of space that holds no center, only memory. Behind you, the orbit of nothing continues, still turning, still shaping the silence around it with motion no one else will ever see. But you saw it, and it saw you. You move now through space that feels thinner, quieter, wider than anything before. The orbit behind you, smooth, circular, echoing with the memory of forgotten mass, has let you go without friction, without loss. And ahead, the stars are fewer still. Those that remain barely pierce the dark. They glow dimly, distant and cool, scattered like faint embers that no longer burn, only rest. Your ship drifts forward without resistance. There's nothing here to pull against, nothing to push away from. You are gliding not into the future or away from the past, but into a space between all things, a space not shaped by gravity or heat, but by absence made soft. This is where the known universe begins to lose its voice, where matter becomes sparse, and energy slows to the gentlest of pulses. You are approaching the veil of the unlit. At first, you do not see it. The change is not visual. It is felt, a kind of quiet that deepens not outside the ship, but within you. The systems continue to function. The gentle hum of life supports steady and unchanged, but you feel it in the air, in your skin, in the long stretch of time between thoughts. Space begins to behave differently here. Light no longer travels in straight lines. It curves, not sharply, but softly, like heat rising off a road in summer. You begin to notice that shadows, those cast by the faint lights inside your ship, fall in unfamiliar ways. They lean and stretch, not in response to brightness, but to the subtle invisible folds forming in the space around you. This is not turbulence. It is not distortion. It is the edge of interaction, where light no longer finds much to reflect off of, where particles grow so far apart they begin to behave more like ideas than things. The veil itself is not solid. It does not shimmer. It does not pulse. It exists as a transition, a boundary not between two places, but between two kinds of knowing. On one side, light, motion, orbit, pressure, all the mechanics of galaxies and the fabric of the visible universe. On the other, quiet, openness, a slow breathing of something not quite space, not quite void. You do not cross it in a moment. You slide into it, gently, like slipping beneath the surface of a still lake. The first sign is a change in the way your instruments respond. The ship begins to report anomalies, not alarms, not errors, just gaps, absences in data. Pings sent to nearby particles return slower. Light sensors begin to flicker. Not because the light is gone, but because it has no direction. Photons here drift without aim. They scatter, not from matter, but from the bending tension of a region that has no density to hold them. Outside the viewport, the stars fade completely. You are wrapped now in something that doesn't resemble darkness so much as softness, like velvet stretched across the universe. There is no up or down, no brightness, no shine, just the faint sensation of floating within a fabric so smooth and quiet that it seems to fold your ship into itself. The veil is not dangerous. It is delicate. It does not consume. It does not obscure. It simply reduces things to their most essential presence. You begin to lose sense of distance. There is no parallax to measure, no backdrop to judge speed against. Your movement continues, but without comparison. You feel motion in your body, but there is nothing in the world to reflect it. The ship is moving through space that no longer wants to be seen. In this silence, thought becomes something else, not a tool, not a response. It becomes sensation. You begin to remember moments that never happened, places you never were, not as fantasy but as impression. A garden beneath a black sun, a silver sea that moves without waves, a tower of ice that stretches beyond atmosphere. These images don't come from you, they arrive through you, like echoes from a space that once held ideas, but never met. The veil seems to carry these impressions, like wind carries scent. Never direct, never specific, just enough to stir the edges of perception. You let them come, you let them pass. No need to understand, no need to explain. This part of space does not respond to inquiry, it only responds to stillness. You pass near a region where the softness becomes more pronounced. The ship's lights dim almost entirely, and the walls begin to fade into the background. You see your own hand held in front of you, but only as an outline. Its edges blurred, its form less distinct, not disappearing, just less defined. Even form begins to relax here. Everything that once had boundary now breathes with the space around it. You realize this is not the absence of light, it is the dissolution of contrast. You are moving through space where separation no longer matters, where everything is allowed to drift toward unity. You are not dissolving, you are being invited to rest within the larger shape of what is. Time too begins to move differently, not faster, not slower, just less often. Seconds stretch not in duration, but in presence. A single moment here feels fuller, as though everything you've experienced in the journey so far has folded into it. You remember black holes, photon spheres, drifting dust, silent arcs of light, and yet, none of it presses on you. It all rests beside you now, like feathers gently brushing against your thoughts. You are not becoming overwhelmed. You are becoming quiet. In the veil of the unlit, memory floats, thought floats, even light floats. Everything that once felt bound now stretches into a peaceful slackness. The ship, aware of this shift, reduces its functions. You are still safe, still moving, but even the screens begin to dim. The interface dissolves into faint patterns, curved lines, flowing sequences, gentle waves of light that serve no purpose except to echo the softness around you. You are not being asked to act. You are being asked to be, to breathe, to drift, to listen to a space that speaks not in sound, but in absence. You realize now that you've crossed into a space that few have seen, not because it is unreachable, but because it cannot be rushed. The veil reveals itself only to those who move slowly enough to match its rhythm, only to those willing to sit still and listen to what does not speak. You linger in this space for what feels like an eternity, and it is an eternity, not measured in time, but in depth. You feel something settle deep inside you, a loosening of inner gravity, a release of pressure you didn't know you held. There is no event to mark the exit, only a soft return of motion. The ship begins to respond more clearly again. Light returns, but gently. A single star far away becomes visible once more. A pinprick of white in the far distance. The veil has not closed. It has simply let you go, and you are grateful for its silence, for its slowness, for the way it folded you into the soft curve of all that doesn't need to be seen. Ahead, the path continues, quiet, patient, ready when you are. You rest your hand on the arm of the chair, feeling the fabric, feeling your own breath again, and you drift onward. The veil falls behind you now. A lingering softness that remains not as a shape, not as a point in space, but as a feeling. It never truly had a location, and it never really left you. You carry its stillness with you as the ship drifts forward into a region even more subdued, if such a thing were possible. Here, space is so deeply quiet, it feels hollow. Not hollow in the sense of being lacking, but hollow like a great cathedral, or a canyon of the soul, the hollow between waves. This is what some have called it, a place where nothing collides, nothing reflects, and the smallest particle passes without ever touching another. This isn't the space between stars. It is the space between the spaces between them. It lies beneath the rhythms of galaxies, outside the pull of structure, and beyond even the harmonies of gravity's faintest hands. At first glance, or rather first sense, it feels like absence. The ship glides without resistance. No course corrections, no need for propulsion. It moves as if it is simply part of the fabric around it. There is no dust, no debris, no light, and yet, the nothingness here is so pure that it begins to sound like something, not audibly, but deep within your attention. There is a hum, a kind of atmospheric quiet that begins to feel like an ambient presence, as though you are standing in a vast hall with no wind, no sound, and still somehow the space speaks. You realize that this hollow is not accidental. It's not a forgotten place. It is deliberate, formed not by destruction, but by restraint. This is where the echoes of the universe pause between breaths. Inside the ship, everything continues without change. The systems hum at their lowest frequencies. The lights remain low. The cabin feels larger now, though no measurements have shifted. You stand near the viewport and gaze out into the hollow, watching for even the slightest hint of movement or change. And then you see it. Not light, not color. A ripple, a slow pulse moving across the dark, like the echo of a wave that traveled 1 billion years to find you. It passes without touch, without force. It is a change in pressure so minute that the ship doesn't even register it, but you feel it. Not physically, but as a moment of recognition, as if some invisible hand just turned the page of the cosmos. It leaves behind no sound, no motion, only a deepened silence. You drift further in, deeper still into the hollow, and now, the patterns begin to emerge. Not patterns of light or motion, but of timing. The pulses return, not frequently. Hours might pass between them, or seconds. You no longer know. They are slow and irregular, like the breathing of something asleep. Each pulse, when it comes, alters the hollow in a subtle way. A shimmer crosses the dark. A vibration hums through the floor beneath your feet. Too soft to call a tremor. The stars are long gone now. Their light can't reach this place. You're outside the gallery of illumination, and yet, something remains. Not cold, not distant, just soft, like layers of space stacked in silence. You begin to feel the shape of the hollow in your body. Your limbs feel longer, not because they are, but because the space between atoms seems more forgiving here. Your thoughts drift without edges. You no longer need to finish them. They arrive, bloom gently, and drift away. You sit, not because you are tired, but because the air around you invites. Even time seems to stretch differently. You watch one of the pulses return. This one brighter, barely visible, like the breath of something huge just stirring in its sleep. You wonder what caused it. A galactic merger in the distant past, the ripple of a quantum event on a scale you can't perceive, or perhaps it is simply the way the universe keeps time out here. Not with ticking, but with waves. The hollow does not end. It simply continues in every direction. Like a lake with no shore, you are not crossing it. You are inside it, part of it. The ship is still, save for its continued motion through the quiet. And you who began this journey out of curiosity or rest or longing, have now become something else, a passenger of silence, a companion to stillness. You reach out and place your hand against the glass, not to touch anything, just to feel the pause between gestures. The glass is cool, but not cold. It hums faintly. The pulse passes again, this time slightly closer, slightly longer, and you realize that these waves are not warnings. They are invitation. They are the way the hollow remembers it is alive. Somewhere in the corner of the ship, a sensor flickers, not an alarm, just an observation. A new form of radiation, soft and ancient, has been detected. Background noise from the early universe, slowed so far by time and space that it has become a sigh. You smile. Not because it means anything urgent, just because it is still here, still drifting, still arriving. The hollow is not empty. It is full of the long echoes of things that once were everything and now are only peace. You imagine the first light of creation still moving, still gliding outward, still humming softly across the deepest regions of space, and you feel it here. Not as brightness, but as a warmth that never needs to be hot. Just present, just enough. You pass a region where the pulses slow even more. 10 minutes, maybe 20, maybe longer. Between them, space becomes so flat, so still, that it almost seems to press inward, not like weight, like comfort. You lie back now, body weightless, mind softened into mist. The hollow hums around you. You are in a lullaby so long it might never end. The ship keeps moving. It doesn't ask questions. It doesn't blink. It simply carries you forward, between the breaths of a universe that no longer needs to explain itself. You are between waves now, floating in the pause that holds everything. And in this pause there is nothing left to wish for. Only this, only now. The hollow between waves has grown quieter now. Not fading but settling, as if the pulses of distant cosmic memory have slowly curled into themselves, returning to their origin in silence. The ship moves forward, without hesitation. It needs no map, no signal. Its trajectory is written into the shape of space itself, guided not by stars or beacons, but by the way the universe breathes. You drift on beyond the last rhythm of pulses, into a stretch of space that begins to change in a subtle, almost imperceptible way. There's no turbulence, no sudden flare of light. Just a soft gleam at the far edge of vision, like the glint of sun on distant ice. At first it seems like a trick of the eye, but then you notice it again. Then again, tiny points of light, not shining, not flickering, but reflecting. You are entering the drift glass plane. It is not a plane in any ordinary sense. There's no surface, no land, no boundary to stand on or walk across. This is a vast, three-dimensional field of slowly drifting shards, fragments of ancient, forgotten things, suspended in perfect equilibrium. Not wreckage, not ruin. Each piece floats gently, individually, as if set in place with careful hands. They glimmer faintly, not from internal light, but from the faint scattering of background radiation, echoes from galaxies too far to name, bouncing softly off smooth surfaces. These shards are not all the same. Some are crystalline, catching the dim light in long angles. Others are soft-edged, dulled by time, worn smooth by a billion years of drifting. Each one carries its own shape, its own silence, its own purpose forgotten long ago. The ship slows slightly, sensing the shift. It drifts among the pieces with quiet precision, weaving slowly through the field. You peer out through the wide front viewport and begin to take in the scope of this strange, scattered world. The fragments stretch in every direction, above, below, to the sides, floating like ice on a still sea. Some are small, no larger than your hand. Others span tens of meters, smooth panels of a material you don't recognize, turning slowly in the void. You drift past one shaped like a spiral, its edges chipped and weathered, its surface marked with faint lines that almost resemble writing. Not a language you know, not a language meant to be read. Just the soft scars of time carved into glass that no longer remembers what it once held. The ship passes close to a shard that glows slightly warmer than the others. Its surface is faceted, layered like a crystal grown too slowly to notice. As you watch it turn, you catch a glimpse of your own reflection. Warped, stretched, then gone. It's like looking into a memory you didn't have. Something familiar and unknown at once. You wonder what this piece was part of. A satellite? A shell? A vessel like your own? Long emptied of breath and thought. There are no answers here. The plane doesn't offer explanations. It only reveals. Slowly, quietly, patiently, you begin to notice a pattern in the placement of the fragments. Not structure, not alignment, but balance. None of the pieces touch. None of them crash or collide. They float in relation to one another, held by delicate fields. Perhaps magnetic, perhaps gravitational, perhaps simply the long memory of inertia, preserved across time. The effect is peaceful. So peaceful, in fact, that the space feels sacred, like a sanctuary built not by hands but by the soft unfolding of entropy itself. Everything has come apart here, but gently. Nothing shattered, nothing burned. It all just loosened, released, allowed to separate and remain whole. The ship glides deep. A slow turn reveals a region where the shards become more translucent. These are not made of stone or metal. They resemble frozen vapor, long trailing veils of semi-transparent matter, drifting in slow arc. You pass beneath one that stretches like a ribbon, its form quivering faintly in the low radiation. It brushes the outer edge of the ship and refracts light across the interior, casting long, rippling shadows. For a moment, the cabin glows with soft blue and green, as if underwater. The silence deepens. You are no longer watching the plane. You are inside it, part of its motion, part of its memory. Something about this place encourages stillness in you. Not just physically, but emotionally. You feel your own inner fragments set. Thoughts that once competed for attention now drift gently, side by side. A memory of sunlight on your face, a voice long silent, the feeling of standing at the edge of a frozen lake, breath steaming, waiting for nothing at all. These moments pass through you the way the shards pass through the ship's orbit. Without force, without command. You realize you don't have to hold them. They are not lessons. They are not warnings. They are just pieces, floating quietly in your own interior sky. Eventually, the ship passes near the center of the plane, or what feels like the center. Here, the density of the fragments increases slightly, forming something that almost resembles a corridor. The path narrows just a bit, and the shards begin to align, not perfectly, not mechanically, but enough to suggest that something moved through here once. Something large, something slow, perhaps another traveler like you, perhaps something old. You follow the gentle bend of this path, watching as the shards open before you, then slowly close again behind, returning to their patient rest. It feels as though you are being remembered, not as an individual, not as a visitor, just as motion, just as presence. You move on for some time. The shards thin again, the shapes soften, a few are broken, but even the broken pieces float without complaint. This place does not judge what is whole and what is not. Everything belongs, everything rests. You pass a final cluster, 7 shards in a loose ring, each glowing with a different hue. Together they resemble a flower, or perhaps a constellation. You pause there, letting the ship drift quietly in the center. The colors dance across the hull. You watch, you breathe. You close your eyes. When you open them again, the plane has begun to fall behind you. The shards grow smaller, less frequent. The silence changes, not deeper, just different. You've passed through the field, through the memory, through the long, quiet architecture of a place built by time alone. And now the stars begin to return, faint pinpoints far ahead, scattered like seeds waiting for light. But you do not rush toward them. You carry the drift glass with you now, in your breath, in your thoughts, in the way you have learned to float. The driftglass plane has faded into memory now, the last fragments dissolving into distance like scattered petals caught in a current. The ship drifts through a stretch of space that at first feels still, even plain. No glow, no reflection, only the deep and even dark of quiet stars far beyond reach. But something is different here. You feel it first in your breath. In the soft way it slows, deepens, there is a gentleness to the space ahead. Not visual, not even gravitational, but rhythmic. The ship begins to adjust course on its own. Subtle and slow, guided not by a need to navigate, but by the presence of something larger, something unseen, something that pulses. It begins like a memory you never made. A vibration in the walls, not sound, but pressure. The floor hums beneath your feet in a way that doesn't disturb, only soothes. The light inside the ship dims by degrees, as if echoing the unseen rhythm that now surrounds you. Outside, the stars are sparse, but they begin to shimmer not with brightness, but with motion, just enough to hint at change. The ship has entered the harmonic shell. It is not a structure. It has no edge, no barrier, no wall, but it surrounds you all the same. A field of synchronized frequency that stretches across a region of space like a woven net of resonance. It's believed these shells form where large-scale galactic waves intersect. Gravitational waves, light echoes, old magnetic fields, gently brushing against one another over millennia, until they settle into a kind of equilibrium, a place where waves become patterns, and patterns become rest. You are inside one now. Your ship caught not by force but by agreement. It doesn't resist, it follows. The ship begins to match its systems to the surrounding hum. Lights pulse faintly. The hull vibrates in long, slow intervals, the way a sleeping creature might shift under blankets. You look through the front window and see nothing at first, just space. But slowly, the patterns emerge, not in lines or motion, but in repetition. A faint ripple to the left, then another on the right. A flash of a star's pulse, followed an exact number of seconds later by another, as if responding in kind. These aren't coincidences, they're conversations. The shell sings, not with sound, but with alignment. Waves of light and motion echo and respond to one another, forming a network of long, slow rhythm that you can feel in your chest. You are not hearing it. You are in it. You are part of the instrument now. The ship glides deeper, turning gently to follow the flow. You pass a cluster of particles too small to see as separate, too scattered to be called a cloud, but they move in concert, bending slowly in a spiral that matches the vibration humming through the cabin walls. Everything here has joined the song. You notice your own breath sinking to it, not by effort, but by grace. You inhale just as a pulse moves through the hull. You exhale just as the distant shimmer of light realigns in response. You feel your thoughts begin to quiet, shaped by this shared rhythm. There's no urgency here, no confusion, only presence, only motion that doesn't ask for meaning. You begin to see forms now, trails of color shifting in the near dark, light from distant stars bending across the wavefronts of the shell. The effect is subtle, like sunlight through deep water. Threads of brightness shift and bend, never sharply, always gradually, shaped by the soft layering of field upon field. You pass through one of these light corridors, and for a moment, the entire interior of the ship is bathed in violet. Then it fades to blue, then to silence once more. There's no cause for alarm. This space does not want to harm. It simply wants to continue, to hum, to carry everything within it on a path of least resistance. It's like being inside the chords of a song that no one ever wrote, but that the galaxy has always known how to sing. You find yourself letting go of thought. There is no need for narration here, no need to define what you are witnessing. The harmonic shell is not trying to be understood, it's trying to be felt. You pass through a region where the pulses deepen, the rhythm slowing, until it resembles the beat of a vast, unseen heart. Each thrum takes nearly a full minute. Each one moves the ship just slightly. Each one presses gently through your bones and into your breath. You begin to imagine the origin. Was this place born from a galactic collision, a burst of gravity echoing through empty space? Or is it the leftover resonance of light bouncing between two massive voids? You don't know. You don't need to. Knowing would change nothing. The song continues whether you understand it or not. A soft vibration begins in the ceiling, barely there. Just a subtle presence. You look up and realize the ship's lighting has begun to shift in time with the pulse. Not quickly. Every few minutes, a change in hue. Amber, pale silver, deepest blue. It is not responding to commands. It is participating. Your ship, your vessel through this long journey, is not an outsider here. It has become part of the harmony. You close your eyes and listen. Not with ears but with skin, with stillness, with the slow, quiet thrum that now lives in your chest. At some point there's no mark of when you reach the center of the shell. You don't know it because anything has changed. You know it because everything aligns just a little more perfectly. The pulses are now so consistent, so evenly spaced, that they feel like a kind of holding. The stars outside the ship shift just slightly, taking on a circular path that turns without effort. Your breath slows until it matches the pulse exactly. One breath per cycle. In, hold. Out, hold. The ship holds too. It doesn't turn. It doesn't blink. It simply remains suspended in the heart of something immense. And you remain with it, no longer watching, no longer waiting, just being held by a song so large, so slow, so patient, that it will never end. Eventually the shell begins to ease its grip, not with loss but with release. The rhythm remains steady, but your ship begins to drift slightly outward, as if gently carried toward the edge of the field. You pass once more through shimmering corridors, the waves of light folding around you. The pulses grow fainter, not weaker, just less present. The ship aligns its path to the direction of motion, a long, soft exit. The resonance does not vanish. It continues behind you. It always will, and you carry it now, in your lungs, in your heartbeat, in the way your thoughts no longer push or pull, but sway. You were part of a song for a time. You will always be. The harmonic shell fades into space, still echoing, still humming, still waiting for others who will drift slowly enough to hear it. Ahead, more space, more darkness, and somewhere within it the next breath. The harmonic shell has faded behind you, but its presence lingers in the way your breath still moves in time with something unseen. The ship carries the hum like a faint echo, stored in its walls, its frame, its pulse. You drift through the silence beyond, back into the deep space that stretches without form, where the stars are sparse again, and time folds without urgency. For a while nothing shifts. There are no pulses, no flares, just the steady continuation of motion, without resistance. Then slowly, something begins to return. A faint shift in the quality of light ahead. Not brighter, not larger, just softer. It begins as a glow without source, a smudge of illumination in the dark, a brightness that does not come from any one direction. It wraps the ship in a haze of cool light, pale and quiet. You are approaching the pale bloom. It isn't a star, it isn't a nebula, it isn't even matter in the conventional sense. The pale bloom is a phenomenon few have witnessed, and even fewer understand. A vast, diffuse field of luminous gas and ionized particles, stretching across many light years, but glowing so faintly it's invisible to most instruments, unless approached directly. Scientists speculate it's the aftermath of a galactic event so old its cause has long vanished. Others believe it's something else entirely. A place where the rules of isolation bend and soft light blooms without fire, without fuel, without source. You cross into the bloom without sensation. There's no resistance, no barrier, only the gradual arrival of glow. It doesn't overwhelm, it embraces. Outside the viewport, the universe has become pastel. Soft lavender and pale rose stretch through the dark. Not in clouds, but in slow currents. The particles that form the bloom are suspended in a calm so complete that they hardly move, except to shimmer slightly as you pass through them. You begin to notice arcs, like ripples, frozen in motion. Wide, sweeping bends of color where light seems to pool, curve, and relax. The ship drifts through one of these arcs, and for a few long moments, the entire interior glows gently pink, then silver, then back to the still, cool, dark. You are passing through a place where color is memory, and memory has learned how to float. There is no sound in the bloom, no pulse like the harmonic shell, no shimmer like the drift glass plane. This is deeper, softer, a space made not to hold objects, but to hold light without purpose. The particles here are not moving toward anything. They are not radiating. They are not escaping. They are simply here, suspended in a kind of luminous hush. You glide between them as though navigating a field of silk threads spun too fine to touch. Occasionally a swirl forms just ahead of the ship, a soft eddy of light, like wind playing with the hem of a curtain. Then it dissolves again into formlessness. The ship responds to these currents, not with avoidance, but with accommodation. It drifts where the bloom invites, each motion as natural as a leaf turning on a lake. You watch as the glow outside begins to shift again, this time growing more complex. Shapes emerge, not structures but patterns, circles, spirals, petal-like flows. They form slowly, not as objects, but as suggestions. A pale disk expands and narrows into a curve. A cluster of shimmer expands like a flower opening in reverse. You realize now why this place was given its name. The bloom doesn't resemble a plant exactly. It resembles the idea of one, a slow unfolding of color and form that arises from the background of stillness, then vanishes without warning. You pass near one such bloom, and for a breathless second, the shape turns toward you, as if responding to the motion of your ship, not in greeting, not in awareness, but in harmony, as if your passage has reminded it of a shape it once held. The longer you remain here, the slower everything becomes. Thought slows, breathing slows. You don't feel tired. You feel wide, spacious. Each breath feels like it holds more than air. Each moment expands to contain its own echo. You let your eyes close for a time, just to feel how the light presses through your lids. Not bright, not warm, just present. The bloom becomes something you feel on your skin, in your bones. It isn't tactile. It isn't pressure, it's resonant. The same way a voice might hum softly through wood, or the way a memory can settle into the rhythm of your heartbeat. The bloom isn't offering anything, it's simply being. And in its being, it invites you to let go of everything that presses. You release your need to explain. You release your need to describe. You are light now, drifting through light. In the far distance, you begin to see a slow fade in the glow. The bloom, as expansive as it is, does have an edge, not sharp, not final, just a soft dissolving. The arcs of color stretch thinner, the pastels grow paler, the petal shapes lose their boundaries. Your ship continues through this quiet exhale, moving through the final breath of the bloom. The glow no longer surrounds you, it lingers behind you, brushing softly at the hull, like fingers through water. You leave no trail. Nothing is disturbed. The bloom remains whole, untouched, complete, and you are changed. Not because the bloom gave you anything, but because it allowed you to feel the presence of something that needs no center to be beautiful. Ahead, the stars begin to return, not in a rush, not in a crowd, just one, then two, then a slow shimmer along the horizon of space. Their light feels sharper now, not brighter, just more defined. You realize how long you've spent inside color without edge, and how the stars now seem almost solid by comparison. You look once more behind you, and the pale gloom stretches there, a vast glowing hush, fading into the deep, where no motion stirs. You know it will always be there, unfolding in softness, blooming for no one, blooming for everything. And so you drift onward, still breathing slowly, your body still tuned to the bloom's rhythm. The ship continues without sound, without urgency, through the soft return of stars. But inside you, light still floats, gentle, weightless, unfolding. The pale bloom fades gently behind you, its soft colors and curving forms dissolving into distance, leaving only the faintest memory of light in your wake. The ship moves forward into space that feels clearer, quieter, though not empty. There is something waiting ahead, something not loud, not radiant, but present. You sense it first as a thin ripple in the starlight, a shimmer in the distance that seems to fold in on itself, like the faint glint of heat on distant pavement. The stars beyond it warp slightly, their positions waver, chaotically, but rhythmically, as though being stirred by something old and slow. The ship adjusts its course without instruction, gliding toward the subtle fold. You are approaching the corridor of refracted time. It isn't a corridor in any architectural sense. There are no walls, no doors, no lights to guide the way, but the shape is there, a pathway carved by distortion, not structure. It stretches like a soft river, barely visible, its banks defined not by matter, but by the way time bends around its flow. You watch through the forward window as the stars ahead begin to ripple, their light bending at odd angles. Some stretch into curves, others fold into duplicates of themselves, appearing twice then merging again into single points. This is not a lens. It's not about light. It's about time itself, stretched thin and redirected across this space like a ribbon caught in slow wind. The ship begins to enter the corridor, and time, your experience of it, begins to shift. You feel it first in your breath, a pause between inhale and exhale that lasts just a fraction longer than usual, a subtle tug on your rhythm. Your thoughts begin to arrive more slowly, not delayed, just elongated, like they are unfolding over a slightly wider canvas. You glance at the display, nothing malfunctioning, all systems in harmony, but the readings begin to show strange delays. Signals sent from the ship's sensors take microseconds longer to return. A pulse of energy fired into the void does not return in the same shape. It returns, altered, not in power, in rhythm. You've entered a region where time has begun to refract, not break, not stall, but redirect. You are not traveling through time. Time is traveling differently through you. Outside the ship, the corridor begins to reveal more, not in shapes, but in pattern. Curved lines of starlight form spirals around unseen points. These aren't objects, they're events, old interactions, gravitational tugs from bodies long gone, ripples in time left behind like eddies in a river. You pass near one such spiral, and watch as the stars behind it twist briefly, becoming trails of light that curve in on themselves before straightening again. The ship is unaffected, or perhaps it's simply in tune. Its movement remains steady. You feel no turbulence, no acceleration, only a deeper quiet, a sense of slowness that is not delay but attention. You drift deeper. The light within the corridor grows more complex. Some stars appear brighter, but only briefly. Then some seem to blink in long, slow cycles, like the memory of a beacon, rotating at the edge of a forgotten sea. And then you begin to see something more remarkable. Moments, not visions, not hallucinations, just moments, reflections of time, folded and refracted through the corridor's slow flow. A star's birth caught in a flicker, its light folding over itself in a loop. A comet passing silently across the curve of a world that no longer exists. These aren't windows into other times. They're ripples, fragments of events, stretched across this space by the unique structure of time here. They do not stay, they do not speak, they are simply present for a breath, then gone, like waves lapping at the hull before sinking back into the ocean. You begin to wonder what the origin of the corridor was, what could have carved such a space, not with mass but with motion. Perhaps a collision of gravitational giants, two black holes dancing close enough to stretch space-time like fabric, then separating again and leaving this corridor behind like a wrinkle in an old sheet. Or perhaps it's the residue of a long-lost structure, something vast and slow, whose influence on time outlasted its physical form. Whatever the cause, the effect is beautiful, not chaotic, not frightening, beautiful in its slow, in the way time here allows itself to turn, to breathe, to echo softly, instead of marching on in perfect line. You drift past a region where the corridor narrows slightly, and something strange happens. Your own reflection in the glass begins to shift, not dramatically, just slowly. You raise your hand and see it move, half a second late, a full second behind. Then it catches up, then it leads, then it aligns again. Time is folding around you now, not harming, not halting, but letting you glimpse the way it stretches and returns. You don't feel disoriented, you feel curious. You realize that even here, where time behaves like light bent through water, you are not lost. You are being held, cradled in a stream that remembers the shape of its motion. Inside the ship, the air seems thicker now, not heavy, just as if even breath has learned to move more slowly, more deliberately. You sit back and allow the rhythm to pass through you. Thoughts come gently, emotions drift past like clouds, neither sharp nor heavy. You are suspended in something soft and old, and it allows you to rest, even as you continue to move. Time no longer measures progress, it only marks presence, and presence, here is everything. Eventually the corridor begins to widen, the distortions ease, the refracted light begins to straighten, the stars returning to their places, their lines no longer bent. The shimmer of curved time dissolves into clean silence. You are exiting the corridor now, slowly, smoothly. The delays in the ship's systems fade. The slight elongation of your breath returns to normal, and yet, you feel changed, not aged, not shifted, just softened, as though something inside you now moves with just a little more space between each thought, just enough to notice the quiet between seconds. You look back through the rear panels and see the corridor fading into the dark, barely visible, a narrow fold in the fabric of space that now holds your shape for a while longer. Time does not end, it only continues, but here, in this moment, you feel it more gently than ever before. You drift on, not rushed, not delayed, just carried. The corridor of refracted time slowly vanishes behind you, not with a sharp boundary or sudden shift, but like a memory sinking gently into the still water of the present. The ship drifts through clean, quiet space once more, surrounded by stars too distant to cast shadow, too faint to define direction. There is peace here, the kind that doesn't need reason, the kind that arrives when all motion feels natural, and every moment stretches without pressure. For a while you float in the silence, letting the softness of it carry you. Then you begin to notice a change, not in the stars, not in the ship, but in the light. It starts small, almost imperceptible, a faint warmth at the far edge of vision, low and golden, like the distant flicker of firelight through mist. You turn toward it, and as the ship continues forward, the glow expands, not in brightness, but in depth. It becomes clearer, warmer, a slow bloom of gold and amber that stretches across the distant dark, not like a star, not like a sunrise, but like the lantern of something vast and kind waiting ahead. You are approaching the lantern horizon. Unlike a sun or a beacon, the lantern horizon has no core, no center. It's not an object. It's a condition, a region of space filled with the low collective glow of 1,000 scattered sources, all gathered by time and distance into a soft band of light that arcs across your path. Scientists once believed it was merely a galactic reflection, a curtain of particles catching background radiation. But those who've passed through it say something different. They say it watches, they say it welcomes, not with presence, not with eyes, but with a light that makes the soul soften, and the silence feel more like comfort than emptiness. The ship floats toward the horizon, without needing guidance. It follows the curve of the light, as if drawn by instinct. The glow increases gradually, never harsh, never urgent. It spreads across the sky like brushed gold, dotted with flecks of pale silver, and hints of deep red, traces of nebulae long since dissipated, stars long since gone quiet. This light isn't new, it's ancient. It's light that has traveled too far to remain sharp, light that has passed through dust and dark and decay, and has come out on the other side gentled, worn smooth, like a stone polished by an ocean of years. As you cross into the horizon's soft embrace, the interior of the ship responds. The walls take on a faint glow, their surfaces reflecting the lantern light, as though they've been waiting for it. The cabin doesn't brighten, it warms. The panels hum more softly, the screens dim into golden hues, and you feel it, deep inside, not energy, not heat, but peace. You realize that your body, your breath, even your thoughts have begun to respond to the light, not as if basking in it, but as if remembering it, like it's something you've known before, long ago, in a form you've forgotten but your soul still recognizes. Outside, the horizon unfolds in layers. The light is not uniform. It moves in waves, broad and slow, like the tides of a sea you can't see. Some regions glow more warmly, others more faintly, but all of it feels connected, part of a larger motion that never hurries. You drift past a cluster of gold flecks, drifting in formation, dust clouds illuminated just enough to outline their elegant shapes. They move in gentle arcs, sweeping like dancers through the dark. You watch them pass, not as spectacle, but as companionship. The horizon holds them, just as it holds you, without judgment, without expectation. In the distance you spot what looks like a flare, but it's not sudden, it's not violent. It's the slow brightening of a region where the lantern light thickens. As the ship approaches, the glow resolves into what could be described as a field, a luminous plane of softly glowing particles, suspended in equilibrium. They drift not chaotically, but in slow upward spirals, like embers rising from a fire. You glide into the edge of the field and feel the ship slow, almost imperceptibly. The light wraps around the hull, casting soft shadows across the interior. The ship makes no sound. The particles part gently as you pass. No collisions, no friction, just soft movement, like wading through velvet. You let your eyes close for a moment. The warmth of the light seeps through your eyelids, a gold that lives in feeling more than in sight. You breathe in and it feels like the first breath after waking from a dream that left you whole. Not happy, not sad, just whole, present, resting. The light doesn't ask you to see it. It only asks that you be here now, floating quietly through its gentle hum. As the ship continues, the field begins to fade. The particles thin, the upward spirals dissolve. The light remains, but the structure softens. You are passing through the inner band of the lantern horizon now, drifting toward the place where the glow begins to taper. But it does not end. This light, once it touches you, seems to linger. It becomes part of the way you see, part of the way you breathe. Even as the stars ahead grow sharper, their edges clearer, the lantern glow remains like an afterimage in your mind, soft and steady. You look out again at the horizon, and realize it stretches behind you as well now, wrapping around your ship like a halo. It does not close, it does not recede, it simply continues. Some part of you suspects that this glow will follow you for the rest of your journey, not physically, but in the quality of your thoughts, in the calm that now lives behind your eyes. The light has entered you in a way that doesn't require explanation. It has made room for you, and you have made room for it. The ship glides on, past the last gentle curves of light, toward the quiet stars ahead. You've left the lantern horizon, but its warmth still rests in the air around you, like a song that has ended but still echoes in your breath. The glow of the lantern horizon slowly slips behind you, leaving your ship and your thoughts warmed by something that doesn't fade, even when the light itself grows dim. Ahead, the stars are clearer again. Pinpoints scattered across black velvet, cold and far and steady. But something has shifted. You no longer look at them the way you once did. They are not beacons now. They are not targets. They are not distant promises. They are companions. You drift forward and they drift with you, not closer, not further, but present, unbothered by time or direction. The ship is still. You are still, and in that stillness, something new begins to rise in the dark ahead. It begins not with shape, not with light, but with sensation. The ship's sensors register a soft increase in particle density. Nothing dangerous, nothing even thick enough to scatter light. But there is movement, a curling, spiraling presence in the dark. At first it seems like any other dust cloud, a filament drifting between stars, stirred by ancient magnetic fields. But as you approach, something else becomes clear. The motion of the cloud isn't random. It isn't stirred by your passage. It's already moving. Slowly, deliberately, spiraling inward and outward in patterns too smooth, too patient, to be shaped by physics alone. This is not just matter. This is memory. You have entered the cloud that remembers. There is no boundary, no moment where you cross into it. The stars behind you begin to fade gently, and those ahead blur slightly, as if the space between them has thickened with thought. Not fog, not smoke, but particles so fine and so old that they have become part of the fabric of awareness. The cloud does not obscure, it filters. Shapes and shadows begin to appear, not in the distance, but in the patterns of motion around you. A loop that curls back on itself, a wave that slows, then repeats. You realize that the cloud is not displaying images. It is echoing behavior, echoing movement. Somewhere deep within this drifting veil of forgotten particles is a long memory, not of events, but of presence. You glide through one such memory. A gentle arc of gas swirls ahead of the ship, then opens like a curtain, forming a spiral that matches the shape of the galaxy you left far behind. For a moment you feel a sense of recognition, not because the cloud is showing you something specific, but because it is showing you something familiar. A gesture, a path, a slow repetition of turning that feels like breath, like thought, like home. You are not being shown a path, you are being held within its pattern, gently, as if the cloud is remembering what it was like to be near something living. The cloud is not alive, and yet it feels aware, not consciously, not directly, but in the way a place can remember what it has held. This region of space, this slow spiral of drifting matter, has known many passages, many quiet ships like yours, many moments of stillness brushing through its body. And now with you here, it remembers again. Not by looking back, but by unfolding in your present. The spiral tightens around you, not trapping, just responding. The particles adjust their flow, curling softly toward the ship before drifting away. You move through them like a hand through water, and the cloud moves with you, echoing your shape, your rhythm. You pass through a dense band, a stretch of fine material barely visible, but glittering faintly as it flows. The light from your ship reflects in waves, revealing currents and swells like breath in slow motion. It's not light that guides you here, it's movement. The cloud responds to your motion not with resistance, but with memory. You turn slightly, and the dust responds. A gentle swirl forms behind you, trailing like a wake, not turbulence. You begin to feel that everything you do here is recorded, not stored, but mirrored, briefly reflected in the soft motion of the particles around you. The cloud doesn't keep these memories. It relives them once, then lets them go, like dreams dissolving in morning light. And not all of the memories are yours. Some have lingered longer. You begin to pass through larger formations, slow, looping arcs that maintain their shape even as the ship glides through. These are old, you can feel it. The dust moves with a weight, a rhythm too patient to belong to anything recent. You watch one swirl bend ahead of you, parting like arms extending in welcome. It reminds you of a comet's tail, or a dancer's turning step. You wonder who passed this way before you, what they left behind in motion, what thoughts they carried that now echo in the pattern of this cloud. You do not feel alone, you feel followed, not by people, not by presences, but by gestures, soft reminders that you are part of something unbroken. As the cloud thickens slightly, the stars disappear completely from view. There is no darkness, just depth. The glow of the ship grows softer, the outlines of the interior fading into shadowless curves. You are inside something ancient and slow and kind. There is no sense of danger, only pause. The air inside the cabin feels heavier now, like the quiet that falls before a story is told. You breathe slowly, your thoughts move with less urgency, and still the cloud remembers you, not as an image, not as a name, but as a pattern of stillness and movement. It wraps around the ship gently, not to hold it, but to echo it, to remember it, for just a little while. Eventually, the particles begin to thin, the spirals unravel, the patterns lose their loops. You are nearing the far edge of the cloud, though no edge ever appeared. The stars begin to return, one by one, their light sharp against the soft backdrop. You glance back, and you can no longer see the path you traveled through the dust. It's already gone. The memory has dissolved, but in the space around you, something remains. A slowness in your body, a quiet in your thoughts, a softened shape in the way your mind holds motion. The cloud that remembers does not hold on. It allows, it echoes, it breathes, and now, you carry a part of its rhythm with you. Not in your hands, not in your memory, but in the gentle way you continue forward, slowly, softly, into whatever comes next. The cloud that remembers has faded like a soft breath into the dark behind you, leaving no trail, no signature, only the lingering stillness in your thoughts. The way your breath now moves slower, more deliberately, the ship glides on, untouched, through a stretch of space that once again seems quiet, undisturbed. But it is a different kind of quiet now. The silence here is not from absence or distance. It feels arranged, purposeful, like it has been placed here gently. You notice the stars ahead begin to shift in tone, not in brightness, but in color, as if the very fabric of space has been dyed in deeper hues. The blues are more muted, the golds feel softer, closer to amber, and then the shape becomes clear. Not a wall, not a field, but a boundary made of presence. You are approaching the quiet hemisphere. It isn't visible as a dome or a planet, or it is sensed more than seen. A hemisphere of influence, a vast region where noise, motion, and energy behave differently. You cross into it, not with a jolt, but with a breath. The change is subtle. The light inside the ship dims slightly. The stars lose their shimmer, not disappearing, but settling, like snowflakes coming to rest. The hum of the ship's systems lowers its tone, and your own heartbeat seems to quiet in response. Here you realize, space itself has taken on the role of caretaker. This is not emptiness. It is containment, a place preserved by the universe for its own form of reflection. The quiet hemisphere is one of those cosmic phenomena that defy easy explanation. It stretches across light years, yet has no gravity, no matter, no radiation field that could account for its boundary. Some speculate it was formed by the alignment of supermassive voids. Others believe it's a naturally occurring acoustic node in the cosmic background, a place where waves cancel, soften, fold inward. But those who have passed through speak of it differently. They say it is where space dreams, where time pauses not because it must, but because it can. And now you drift into that dream. As you continue, the environment around you responds. Outside, the stars are fewer but larger, not in scale but in presence. Their light doesn't scatter. It's settled. Each one feels nearer, more deliberate, as if they are aware of their own glow. The spaces between them are wider, more exact. You feel that if you reached out, you could touch the very fabric of the cosmos. Stretch it between your fingers like silk drawn tight across infinite quiet. Inside the ship, the panels seem to soften. Their edges blur slightly, as if relaxing. Even the temperature feels more balanced. Not cold, not warm, just still. The air carries a kind of hush that sinks into your skin. You pass through a region where the light outside turns pale silver. It isn't coming from a star, it's ambient, radiating from the space itself. You can't identify a source, it just is. As the ship drifts through this area, the silver glow filters into the cabin. It doesn't reflect, it absorbs. Everything in the room becomes subtly luminescent, as if lit from within. Your hands, the chair, the smooth walls, not bright, but visible, defined by contrast, so soft, it's almost imperceptible. You realize that this glow isn't light in the traditional sense. It's a property of the space, an echo of the calm that lives here, gently revealing without asking to be noticed. And then the hemisphere begins to speak, not in sound, not in words, but in impressions. You feel moments rise in your mind, not from memory, but from somewhere more universal. The image of a moon suspended over a quiet ocean, the feeling of wind moving through tall empty grass, the sensation of floating in a body of water that reflects only stars. These aren't your memories, they aren't anyone, they belong to space itself. Moments it has carried within the folds of its silence, now offered to you without explanation. You don't resist, you don't interpret, you let them pass through you, each one softening the boundary between self and ship and cosmos. The ship glides onward, turning slowly to follow a curvature you cannot see but deeply feel. The hemisphere does not push, it allows, it offers direction the way gravity offers comfort. Not by force, but by suggestion. You pass what looks like a ripple ahead, space bending gently, like the surface of still water stirred by a drop. The ripple carries no energy signature. It is not a disturbance, it is a rhythm. You pass through it, and the ship shudders ever so slightly, not in resistance, but like a sigh. The lights inside dim, then return, and you feel something release inside you. An old thought, a held breath, a quiet question that no longer needs an answer. The hemisphere continues to curve around you, though it never closes. There is no ceiling, no floor, no horizon, just this sensation of being held in half of something. The gentle arc of space, shaped into a room large enough to contain galaxies, but silent enough to fit inside your chest. You begin to understand why so few ever leave quickly. Time does not command here. Direction does not demand. You could remain, and the universe would wait. You are not lost. You are simply stilled. Eventually, the light ahead begins to shift again. The silver fades to gray. The stars return to their natural sharpness. The edges inside the ship grow more defined. The panels hum at their usual frequency. The ship responds with a slight course adjustment, aligning itself to the path ahead. You are nearing the far edge of the quiet hemisphere. There is no exit. There is only motion. And now, the motion resumes. As you drift out of the soft curve of stillness, you carry its imprint, not as memory, but as rhythm. Your thoughts still move a little slower. Your breath still falls into longer spaces. The light outside the ship may change, but within you something remains. You passed through a place where space did not need to be bright or vast or loud to be full. It needed only to be quiet. And now, you understand what kind of power lives in that quiet. Ahead, the stars await again, not calling, not pulling, just waiting. And you, now quieter than before, continue your drift, still listening to the echo of silence that holds the shape of the hemisphere behind you. The quiet hemisphere lies behind you now, like the curve of a dream you once floated through, still echoing gently in the spaces between your thoughts. The ship carries the imprint of that silence, its system still humming softly, its lights dimmed in gentle rhythm with your breath. There's no need for haste, and nothing calls you forward. Yet forward is where the ship continues to glide, steady and slow, through the stretch of space that opens like a blank page. The stars here seem to move differently, not in their paths or positions, but in their presence. You notice that they don't twinkle. They don't call attention. They rest, scattered across the dark like stones at the bottom of a deep river. Ahead, something begins to shift, not brighter, not faster, but deeper. The void becomes less of a backdrop and more of a presence. You are entering the sea of unspoken motion. It does not arrive as a change in light or energy. It arrives in sensation. The stars ahead begin to waver, not in brightness, but in clarity. Their edges blur ever so slightly, like reflections seen through a thin current. The blackness between them flows, not visibly, but as a suggestion, like a fabric moving beneath your awareness. The ship doesn't detect turbulence. There are no gravitational fluctuations, no electromagnetic anomalies. But something is different. You can feel it, even if no system records it. Space here is not still. It drifts, slowly, smoothly, as if something enormous, something unseen is shifting just beneath its surface. You let the ship drift forward into the current, trusting the quiet balance it has maintained all this time. There is no impact, no resistance, but almost immediately, the view outside begins to respond. Points of light begin to elongate. Stars stretch into soft trails, not from speed, but from the warping of motion itself. The sea of unspoken motion is not made of water, not made of particles or gases, but of momentum, old, layered motion, left behind by the passage of things too massive and too quiet to leave anything else. Their paths did not carve through matter. They carved through possibility, and now you drift through the space that remembers them. You notice that your thoughts begin to follow a similar pattern. They don't arrive in sequence anymore. They come in arcs, in pulses. One thought drifts wide and loops back into another. You remember something from long ago, an image of light seen through falling rain, or the sound of leaves moving over a stone path. These memories don't press for attention. They float up gently, pass across your awareness, then slide away, replaced by something else. A half-finished sentence, a feeling you once had as a child. The ship drifts through the sea, and your thoughts become currents of their own. You pass through a region where the star field bends. It curves not around you, but with you. The stars to the right lean upward. Those to the left drift downward. Not by much, just enough to show you the shape of the flow. The ship is gliding along a path, worn by unspoken journeys, passages through this sea made not by ships, but by the silent movement of mass across each. Perhaps it was the pull of twin black holes, circling each other long before your galaxy took shape. Perhaps it was the motion of a great filament of galaxies, twisting in ways too slow to see. The sea remembers not what passed, but how it passed, and you are now part of its memory. The ship begins to rotate slightly, not by command, but by design. It is responding to the current, not correcting for it, but matching it. The rotation is slow, a gentle spiral that allows the vessel to align with the wider drift. You feel it in your body, not as motion sickness, not as dizziness, but as a soft awareness of curve. You are turning with space now, moving not through it, but within it. The stars become lines, the lines become arcs, and the arcs bend around each other in long, graceful motion. There is no point to fix on, no destination ahead. You are surrounded by movement, so smooth it becomes stillness. At one point the current begins to shimmer, not with light, but with timing. The ship passes through a wave of motion, where everything sinks. Your breath, the pulse of the cabin lights, the rhythm of the engine's low hum. For a moment everything feels tuned, as if the sea itself has brought all motion into harmony. You close your eyes and drift with it, not needing to steer, not needing to know where you are going. This place does not measure travel by distance, it measures it by grace. You pass through a layer of soft magnetism, a field so light it doesn't push or pull, but brushes against the ship like fog through reeds. The ship doesn't resist, it yields, adjusting its position by tiny degrees. You feel the shift, subtle and slow, and for a moment you imagine your ship as a leaf resting on the surface of a vast, unseen ocean. The currents beneath you do not crash, they do not churn, they roll endlessly, layer upon layer of remembered paths. The sea does not carry you, it allows you to be carried. Outside, the stars begin to fragment, not physically, but visually. You see two stars where one should be, then none where another had been, then a new one, brighter, where you've never seen one before. The currents are folding light now, bending it through layers of movement, so slow and wide that vision itself becomes a shifting reflection. You do not feel confused, you feel calm. Letting go of control here is not surrender, it is participation. Time behaves differently, though all the ship's clocks tick on in their usual rhythm. You begin to lose the sense of how long you've been here, not because it's long, because it no longer matters. The sea asks for no schedule, it offers no pressure. You float, and that is enough. Occasionally, a pattern returns, a sequence of light, or the curve of the ship's path repeating itself, but it's never exact. The sea does not repeat like a machine, it echoes like a lullaby, always returning, never the same. Eventually, the light outside begins to thin, the folds straighten, the current eases, the sea begins to flatten, not in distance, but in shape. The stars return to points, the lines fade, the arcs dissolve. You are drifting out of the sea now, though no boundary appears. The ship returns to a simpler motion, forward, slow, peaceful, but you are changed, not in memory, in rhythm. You now move the way the sea moves, with curves, with pauses, with quiet. The stars ahead are calm and wide again, suspended in still space, but you carry with you the memory of motion that asked for no voice. The sea of unspoken motion did not teach, it did not it moved and you moved with it. The sea of unspoken motion quiets behind you now, its long, slow tides receding into memory. The ship, once turning in gentle arcs, now glides forward with calm precision. Space ahead is clearer, flatter, more direct, but the stillness carries a tone. Something hushed, a pause held not in silence, but in subtle reverberation. It is not a void. It is not empty. It is a region defined by what remains not in form but in sound. Not sound as we know it, but resonance. You are entering the veil of dim echoes. You begin to feel it before you see anything. A gentle rhythm that moves through the cabin, barely a vibration, more a suggestion, like a song you can't quite remember, playing quietly in another room. The lights in the ship flicker in response, not malfunctioning, but dimming and pulsing slightly out of sync, as though responding to something unspoken. You check the systems and everything is stable, yet the presence is undeniable. This part of space holds voices, not living ones, not recent ones, but echoes, ghosts of motion, traces of moments, once full of energy and purpose, now drifting like embers too cold to burn, but too warm to vanish. The ship moves on, and slowly, the echoes begin to grow clearer, not in volume, not in sound, but in form. You pass through a faint cluster of particulate matter, so fine it's almost invisible. As light from distant stars catches the particles, they shimmer briefly, then vanish again into the dark. The shimmer repeats itself every few moments, like a memory surfacing, then fading. You realize that the light you see isn't consistent. It's being refracted by waves of resonance, pulses left behind by events long past. These are not the echoes of explosions or collapse. They are the remains of motion, objects once here, long since gone, whose passing bent the fabric of space, just enough to leave a trace. One such trace appears ahead, a faint curve in space, marked only by a pattern in the starlight. A gentle warping that reveals nothing solid. You pass through it and feel nothing on your skin. Hear nothing in your ears, but your thoughts change. A moment of calm deepens. A memory, something small and personal, perhaps forgotten, floats upward. A scent, a sound, a color. Then it fades again. The veil does not hold these things. It reflects them. You are not uncovering what happened here. You are becoming part of its quiet. As the ship drifts deeper into the veil, the echoes begin to layer, not chaotically, softly. A wave of dim refracted light moves slowly across the viewport, revealing a shape that isn't really there. A great arc, the memory of something vast that once moved through this region. It could have been a starship, a fragment of a moon, a wave of expelled matter from a dying star. But now it is only shape, only pattern. The matter has long vanished, but its passage is still written into the space around you. You pass through the arc, and the ship seems to pause, not physically, but mentally. You feel stillness increase, even your breath slow. The echoes here are old but not tired. They're not haunting, they're holding. The veil is a resting place for resonance, a shelter for what once was. Some believe it was formed at the intersection of gravitational fields, so finely balanced that motion once begun simply continued, drifting endlessly in slow loop. Others say the veil was created when a great object passed this way at unimaginable speed, its wake folding space so subtly that the motion never settled. Whatever the origin, what remains is peace, movement so gentle it no longer demands anything of you, just asks that you feel. You pass a region where the echoes deepen. Waves of slightly cooler space ripple through the ship's sensors, and outside, the light dims until the stars blur into the background. Then faintly, a shape appears, a ring, suspended in silence. It isn't solid. It isn't glowing. It's made only of particles suspended in harmonic motion, each moving in a pattern that maintains the form without needing force. A perfect circle, holding the memory of rotation. The ship drifts through its center, and as you pass, the lights in the cabin momentarily pulse and sync. Not by system fault, by design. The ring remembers, and for a few moments, so do you. Not of anything specific, not of this place, just of motion, of time, of being carried. The echo wraps around the ship like a blanket, then fade. You look behind, and the ring is gone, not broken, just invisible once more, waiting for the next slow traveler to pass through. This is how the veil behaves. It doesn't announce, it allows. It doesn't shine, it reflects. You realize now that the space itself is not broadcasting. It's listening, always remembering the patterns of things that moved here, and always replaying them in rhythms too soft to notice. Unless you're still enough to hear, you drift on, now inside the deepest part of the veil. No stars ahead for some time, just darkness, and the gentle shimmer of dim echoes moving across your path. A wave bends the starlight in a long arc, another ripples through the hull, causing a single low tone to hum in the walls. Brief, deep, comforting. The ship doesn't react. It drifts with familiarity, as though it has passed here before. Perhaps it has, or perhaps everything that moves through here learns the rhythm quickly, and begins to match it without realizing. You close your eyes for a moment, and the echoes continue, soft, layered, unfolding. Eventually the pattern begins to thin, the pulses soften. The light returns, the starlight sharpens into clearer points once more, and the system's ready to return to ordinary space. You are passing out of the veil. The last wave brushes the ship's side like a sigh, and then fades into stillness. No alarms, no signals, just quiet. The kind of quiet that comes after a long conversation. You glance back, but the veil is already gone, dissolved into the same silence it once held. It does not keep you. It does not follow. It only waits for the next slow orbit, the next passage, the next motion. You carry its rhythm now, in your breath, in the way your thoughts move more like tides than sparks. The echoes may be dim, but they endure, and so do you. The veil of dim echoes is far behind you now, its layers of softened memory dissolving into the quiet, replaced once again by the wider dark of open space. You drift through it slowly, almost thoughtlessly, with your ship and mind still tuned to the subtle rhythms it left behind. Space ahead is darker now, yet the dark carries no threat. It is more like velvet, soft, expansive, almost warm in its stillness. There are no pulses, no glimmers, just a stretch of space that feels like a pause in a great cosmic sentence. But in the distance, something begins to take shape, not suddenly, but gradually, like the faint brightening of sky before dawn. A line. Thin, pale, suspended, it glows, not with energy, but with steadiness. You are approaching the ribbon between worlds. It's not a path, not a boundary, not a wall. It is a phenomenon unlike any other in the known universe. A filament of light and quiet gravity, stretching between two distant regions of space, like a bridge laid across infinity. It has no beginning that can be seen, no end. It simply extends, thinner than any structure, yet visible even in the deepest dark. The ribbon is said to be a remnant of ancient galactic motion, a river of particles aligned by the echo of forces that once shaped galaxies side by side. A gravitational trace of a bridge between realms now scattered by time. Some say it is the imprint of two massive black holes that passed near each other once, their pull weaving a strand of space so fine it never unraveled. Others believe it is simply one of the universe's rare moments of linear clarity, a place where everything aligned just once and never came undone. You draw closer now. The ribbon does not widen. It does not flit. It remains thin, glowing softly, and the ship aligns itself naturally to its flow, as if recognizing an old melody. There is no interface guiding this decision. There is no urgency. The ship drifts toward the line the way a leaf might find a slow-moving current, slipping into it without pause or thought. As you enter the space surrounding the ribbon, the stars shift slightly, not in place, but in color. The ones nearest the line seem to soften, their hues fading into tones of gray, blue, and pale amber. You blink, and they appear normal again. Then shift once more. You're seeing through layers now. Refraction, not just of light, but of movement. The ribbon doesn't warp space like a black hole. It stretches it, gently, carefully, as if space here is trying to remember how it once reached for something far away. The ship begins to move along the ribbon, not accelerating, but sliding. The motion feels different now, not forward, not upward. More like you're being carried on a moving walkway that touches nothing, suspended between gravity's pull and the absence of direction. You feel weightless in a new way, not just freed from mass, but freed from destination. There is nowhere to go, only the motion itself. The ribbon holds you softly, guiding your ship along its thread-like course. You pass through a section where the light intensifies, not brighter, just more present. The ribbon glows a little more clearly here, its edges barely visible as soft borders of shifting light. You reach out toward the viewport, and for a moment, your own reflection stretches ever so slightly, elongated by the way the ribbon bends time across its path. It's not distortion, it's alignment. The ribbon doesn't pull, it reorients. You realize you're not just drifting forward, you're drifting through the memory of a connection, a place where one region of the universe once touched another, not in collision, in greeting. And even though the galaxies have moved on, the connection remains, stretched so thin it can only be seen from within. The silence here is different, not deeper, but more focused. There are no stray echoes, no wandering pulse. Everything feels tuned to a single tone, not heard, but felt, vibrating softly through the ship's frame. You pass through a field of dust so faint it might as well be thought. The particles shimmer, align briefly with the ribbon's flow, then spiral gently away, lost to space. You watch them go, and something about their movement feels familiar, like handwriting, like the trace of a wave across calm water. This entire place is motion translated into stillness, movement, so old and gentle that it has become architecture. The ribbon stretches on. You do not ask where it ends. You begin to understand that it may not end at all. Or if it does, the end is not the point. The point is the motion, the flow, the quiet transfer from one place to another without loss or pressure. You pass a region where the ribbon narrows even further. And for a moment, everything inside the ship slows, not dramatically, just enough to notice. Your breath lengthens, your pulse eases. The lights in the cabin seem to hold their glow a little longer between pulses. It's as if the ribbon is reminding you that time too can stretch when it is not being measured. You drift through this narrowed point for some time, minutes, maybe, perhaps hours. You no longer know. The ribbon holds you like a cradle, not asking you to sleep, but allowing it. Thoughts soften here, even your memories lose urgency. They become shapes, like clouds drifting past a slow current. A hand, a voice, a morning, a sky, each passes gently, then dissolves again. You realize the ribbon does not store these things. It reflects them, the way a pond reflects what stands above it, clearly, but only for a moment. Eventually, the ribbon begins to broaden again. The stars ahead sharpen slightly. The glow beneath your ship fades to a thread once more. And then slowly, it dims, not disappearing, but blending back into the wider dark. The ship shifts subtly, realigning to open space. You've drifted off the ribbon, back into the unbound stretch of stars and silence beyond. But inside you, something remains. Something aligned, something unspooled and held gently. The ribbon between worlds may have no name for its beginning or its end, but you were within it, and now it lives within you. You've left the ribbon between worlds behind you now. Its thread-like glow has vanished into the black, not like a thing that ends, but like a dream that simply dissolves into the next. The stars have spread out once more, returning to their steady patterns, each one a silent keeper of heat, light, time. The ship glides quietly, no longer carried by a current, but still moving as if something unseen is gently pushing it forward. Not with urgency, but with confidence. And ahead, space takes on a new shape, not in the arrangement of stars, not in the quality of light, but in the feeling of something vast and slow that moves not around you, but beneath everything. You are entering the region known only as the soft engine of distance. It isn't a mechanism, not a machine. The name is more poetic than literal. It refers to a stretch of space where movement becomes memory, and memory becomes motion. It's a place where distance behaves more like thought than geometry, where the act of traveling seems to unfold more within you than around you. Here, ships have been known to feel heavier, not in weight but in awareness. Travelers report that they begin to sense the true scale of the universe, not in numbers or stars counted, but in the quiet realization of just how far one can go without reaching an edge. It's called an engine because it moves you. It's called soft because it asks nothing of you in return. As your ship enters this stretch of space, you notice the change first in how the stars respond to your movement. They don't slide past you as before. They linger. They hold their positions a little longer, as though watching, as though aware. And when they do shift, it happens slowly, with a kind of reluctance, like they are remembering themselves as they move. The space outside begins to take on a subtle glow, not from any visible source, but from the way motion itself seems to illuminate what would otherwise remain unseen. The dark here is less black, it's more textured. Layers of nothingness arranged so smoothly that they seem to ripple ever so faintly when the ship glides through them. Inside, everything is still. The lights have dimmed again, settling into tones that remind you of early dawn, the moment before the sun rises, when the world is neither night nor day, but somewhere gently between. The air seems cooler, not cold, just awake. Your breath feels longer. You find yourself inhaling more slowly, not from effort but from synchronization. The ship, it seems, is breathing too. Its systems hum with a low rhythm. Not mechanical, not electronic, but organic. Almost as if the ship itself is aware of where it is. Almost as if it knows how far you've come. You pass through a region where the stars appear in small clusters. Triangles, diamonds, arcs. At first you think it's random. Then you begin to see the repetition. The same shapes appear again. Just slightly altered, rotated, stretched, diminished. They are not constellations. They are patterns. Echoes of movement across time. The way gravity once bent light around unseen things and left these faint shapes behind. You drift through them, one by one, and each time you do, you feel something within you adjust. A thought shift. A memory you didn't know you still carried begins to lighten. This part of the universe doesn't erase. It doesn't confront. It eases. Distance here is not just across space. It is across emotion, history, self. And the farther you go, the more that sense deepens. You pass what appears to be a long streak of glowing particles. Hundreds of thousands of specks moving in perfect alignment, trailing behind something you cannot see. The trail doesn't pulse. It doesn't shine. It glows in steady rhythm. A thread of persistence across a space that rarely holds shape. You float along it for a while, letting your ship trace its soft path. It bends gently through the dark, like a memory turned sideways. You wonder who left it, or what. Perhaps a star, perhaps a traveler like yourself, long gone but still moving in some slow rhythm, just beyond your reach. And then something remarkable happens. The ship begins to shift, not its course, but its interior. The lights flicker again, not out of error but in response. The screens dim, then fade, replaced by slow-moving lines of light. Like waves, they don't display data. They display flow. Flow of time, flow of thought. The soft engine of distance doesn't want you to observe. It wants you to participate. You are no longer just watching your journey. You are becoming it. You let go of the controls. You let your eyes rest. You feel the way the ship hums through your feet, your hands, your breath. You are gliding not through empty space, but through a tapestry of past motion. This region has seen many crossings, and in each one, the space itself shifted just slightly. The engine of this distance is not made of force. It's made of memory, of permission. It allows you to move, and it allows your motion to matter. You pass through a narrow corridor of dust and debris. Tiny, fine, almost invisible, but the way they move tells you something else has been here, recently or long ago. Their trails intersect, form spirals, then dissolve. The ship tilts slightly, a correction, but not an avoidance. You're still following a path, even if it's no longer one you can trace with coordinates. It's one you follow by listening, by aligning to the way space unfolds ahead of you. Eventually, the distance begins to thin, not shrink, not collapse, just soften. The space ahead begins to respond more slowly. The star patterns lose their repetition. The texture of the dark becomes smooth again. The feeling of momentum fades, not because you've stopped moving, but because the part of you that once pushed forward has become still. The soft engine has carried you not to a new location, but to a new stillness. You don't measure how far you've come. You only know how much quieter it is inside your chest. You look out at the stars, now sharper again, and see them not as places, but as witnesses. The ship's lights return to their earlier glow. The systems stabilize. The rhythm inside the cabin settles back into something familiar. And yet you are different now. Not in form, not in thought, but in the way you now experience space. The vastness no longer intimidates. It welcomes, because you've learned to move through it not with urgency, but with rhythm, with rest. You've passed through the soft engine of distance, and you carry its quiet forward, even as space begins to open ahead once more. The soft engine of distance has unfurled behind you like a breath released, like the slow stretch of silence that comes after a long thought has ended. Your ship now drifts in a region of space that seems untouched, not by light, not by gravity, not by the passage of other travelers. The stars here are wide apart, each one suspended like a thought too shy to be spoken aloud. There is no path ahead, no signal, no glow or drift or gravity well, and yet you feel something beginning, something gentle, a kind of awareness that rises not through sight or sound, but through presence. You are entering a region known to a few as the quiet bloom. The name itself is uncertain, like a whisper passed from one dreamer to another. It doesn't refer to a plant or a burst of light or an explosion. It refers to the way something unfolds here, slowly, invisibly, impossibly gently. Travelers have described it as a phenomenon where the fabric of space seems to relax, where the cosmos releases a held breath, and the laws of motion shift into something deeper. The quiet bloom is not a place you arrive at. It is a moment that unfolds around you, like petals slowly turning toward a sun you cannot see. As your ship drifts forward, you begin to sense the change. The instruments do not flicker, the lights do not shift, but the way light behaves outside the window begins to change. Stars soften, not in brightness but in outline. Their edges blur, not from speed, not from dust, but as though space itself is wrapping them gently. You see halos where once there were pinpoint. The darkness between them grows luminous, not with glow, but with a kind of internal shimmer, like deep ocean water reflecting a moonlight, hidden beneath its surface. You lean back and let it happen. You let it surround you. The ship drifts through this unfolding without resistance. It doesn't detect any change in density, gravity, radiation, and yet it moves more slowly now, not because something is holding it, but because something is inviting it to slow. The systems lower their hum. The lights within the cabin fade to their softest setting. You're not being lulled to sleep. You're being offered stillness. You're being welcomed into a space that does not need to show itself to be felt. Outside, the bloom begins to reveal its shape, not with structure, not with motion, but with rhythm. You pass a region where the light bends slightly, then returns, a wave barely perceptible, like a soft hand passing beneath the ship. The sensors remain quiet, but your body knows. Your breath shifts, your heart slows. The bloom is not made of particle. It is made of timing, of slow releases, soft returns, patient expansions, a presence that breathes not in seconds, but in centuries. You look out the window again, and begin to see the gentle outlines of what might once have been spirals of gas, long since dispersed, the faded shadows of drifting fields, curves traced not by objects, but by motion long completed. These are not remnants, they are impressions. The bloom holds them not in shape, but in the way it allows space to carry memory as sensation. You do not see a thing, you feel what it once was. The ship passes through a thin veil, a layer of particles, so fine they do not scatter light, but rather gather it, slowing it, stretching it. The starlight outside glows warmer now, as if it had been filtered through silk. Everything beyond the ship takes on a softness, and the longer you look, the more your thoughts begin to shift. You're not thinking in language anymore, not in images, just pulses, impression, like small ripples across still water. One ripple passes through the ship, invisible, but deeply felt. It lasts only a moment, but in that moment, something rises, an emotion you cannot name, not grief, not joy, something like both, a softness that carries weight, a feeling that doesn't press but settles. You breathe it in, and for a time you let it stay. It fades gently, like mist warming in early morning light, and when it does, you are left not with emptiness, but with clarity. The bloom, you realize, is not here to teach, or show, or call attention. It is simply here to unfold, around you, within you, like a petal that does not need to bloom all at once, because time here is infinite, and motion no longer demands arrival. You pass through another slow field, light suspended in curves, space shimmering in long arcs. The ship turns gently, barely more than a breath of movement, to follow the line of the unfolding. You realize that you are not just passing through the bloom, you are part of it now. Your motion contributes to its rhythm. Your breath folds into its pause. For a long while, you drift in silence. The ship glides forward through layers of time too quiet to measure. Outside, nothing changes, yet you are aware that something is deepening. You feel as if you are falling not downward, not forward, but inward, into a space that has no direction, only depth. A slow, infinite folding that reveals nothing and offers everything. The bloom is not a spectacle, it is a resting place for perception. Eventually, you begin to sense the edge, not a boundary, not a wall, but a thinning. The softness of the light begins to sharpen. The shimmer in the dark flattens. Stars return to their outlines. The space beyond begins to carry weight again. The ship straightens. The lights inside regain their structure. Systems realign. You are passing out of the bloom, but you are not leaving. It continues to unfold. Behind you, around you, within you. It will not fade. It simply no longer surrounds. You sit in your chair and breathe, deeper now, slower, the kind of breath that comes after something large and quiet has passed through you. The bloom has no voice, but it spoke, and you listened. You carry its rhythm now in the silence of your thoughts, in the softened pace of your perception. You have passed through a space that did not need to speak, and yet said more than words ever could. The quiet bloom is behind you now, folded into memory like a breath long held and finally released. Your ship coasts forward through the hush of ordinary space. Though the word ordinary feels misplaced now, nothing feels quite ordinary anymore. Not after drifting through the bloom's gentle rhythm, where the universe unfolded without urgency. You're different now, even if only in small ways. Your gaze lingers longer. Your breath deepens without you asking it to. Your thoughts rise like soft tides rather than storms. And ahead, the dark stretches wide again, familiar, open, waiting. The stars are clearer here, sharper in contrast against the velvet backdrop. But something else is beginning. Subtle at first, barely perceptible. The light begins to shift. Not in brightness, but in behavior. The beams of distant starlight begin to shimmer slightly. Not like twinkling, but like passing through a veil. The ship's sensors adjust, recalibrating without alert. You're passing into a region marked only in quiet notes across the deepest archives of long-range observation. A phenomenon known as the field of slow electrons. There's no exact boundary, no definitive cause, no physical object that emits or defines the field. But its presence is unmistakable. It's a vast area where electrons, those fundamental restless particles, move at uncharacteristically low velocities. The vacuum of space, which usually teems invisibly with high-energy motion, here becomes like molasses, not frozen, not stopped but slow to a crawl. The effect is neither dangerous nor disruptive. It's calming, as if the smallest building blocks of matter have chosen to drift, to rest, to simply move more thoughtfully. The ship's motion continues uninterrupted, but the space around it begins to feel thicker. Not in resistance, but in density of experience. The dark carries more weight. The light lingers longer on every surface. You glance toward the forward view, and the stars seem to move just a touch more slowly across the wide window. You check the velocity, unchanged. You're not moving slower. Everything else is. Or perhaps it's simply that time within the field responds differently to motion at the smallest scale. You drift deep. Now the particles become visible. Not as points, not as flashes, but as halos, subtle glows around areas where nothing should be glowing. The sensors register clouds of ionized gas, so faint they would be imperceptible anywhere else. Yet here, they pulse not with energy but with presence. The ship glides through one of these clouds, and for a brief moment the lights within the cabin dim, then shift, then settle. You feel it in your skin, a softness, a pull, as if the ship itself is being held, not stopped, just gently supported. The electrons here drift slowly through space, but also somehow through memory. Each one carries charge, spin, history. But here, in this vast field, they no longer race, they meander, they roll. Their paths curve not because they are guided, but because they are relaxed. The universe in this region has eased its grip on urgency. The particles have responded in kind, and you, now among them, begin to feel the pull of this deeper rhythm. You watch a trail of glow outside the ship, light delayed, bending, moving not away but beside, a photon scattered by slow electrons. Its journey stretched out in waves. It pulses gently, once, then again, then fades. You pass through the area it once occupied, and the cabin lights hum a little more softly. There is no threat here, only invitation. The field does not hold you. It simply asks you to slow, as everything else has slowed. Somewhere ahead, a faint structure emerges, not mechanical, not natural, a spiral, a loose coil of matter held in magnetic drift, a pattern left behind by something long since gone, perhaps a trail of a comet that once passed through this region, and whose ionized wake has been stretched and preserved by the field's unique rhythm. The ship angles slightly to follow the edge of the spiral, not as a directive, but as an acknowledgement. It's peaceful here. You drift beside the coil for a while, watching it rotate ever so slowly, not turning in space, but across time, each layer folding over the next, like music, moving through silence. You think of sound, of its absence, of its shape. If the field of slow electrons had a sound, it would not be silence. It would be a note held so long and so softly that it becomes presence itself, not heard, felt, a tone so gentle that it does not end, because it never began. You close your eyes and listen, not with your ears, with your body, with your breath. The air within the ship feels still, but the space within that stillness vibrates. Just a little, just enough. Time begins to stretch, not in measure, but in meaning. Minutes take on weight, seconds feel wider. You realize that distance here is less important than motion. It's not about how far you travel, but how softly you do it. You pass through a corridor of dust, so fine it registers only as a whisper across your sensors. The ship hums in response, the lights dim, a screen pulses, the dust curves around the hull, and for a moment, it feels like something is listening. Then it fades, and you realize that it was you who were listening all along. Ahead, a shimmer breaks the dark, barely more than a fold in the black, a ripple, where slow electrons have gathered in a spiral too faint to hold form. The ship slows, not by calculation, but by consent. You drift through the ripple, like through a dream. Your thoughts soften, your breath feels rounder, deeper. The shimmer passes through the cabin, casting brief patterns of light across the walls, and then silence again. Not emptiness, just calm. Eventually the field begins to thin. The sensors detect a rise in particle speed. The clouds disperse, the halos fade. The electrons return to their usual pace, moving more quickly, more chaotically. The space begins to brighten. The stars sharpen again. Motion regains its edge. The field is behind you now, and the ship resumes its rhythm. But you are changed, subtly, permanently. There's more room in your breath now, more silence in your thoughts. The field of slow electrons didn't stop you. It didn't redirect you. It simply allowed you to remember what it feels like to move without hurry, to float through a space where every particle has decided, all at once, to take its time. The field of slow electrons has faded gently into the dark behind you, its rhythm now folded into your breath, its softness resting somewhere between your thoughts. The ship moves on, unhurried, through a final stretch of open space. The stars are fewer now, or maybe they've simply grown quieter. Ahead, space opens wide, a soft expanse that doesn't ask for movement, or direction, or destination. Just stillness, just presence. You're reaching the edge now, not the edge of the universe, not the edge of anything physical, but the edge of the story, the edge of this journey. You pass through a band of calm so clear, so perfectly still, that even light seems to pause. There are no pulses here, no echoes, no glimmers of motion, just a single band of glow that stretches across the path like a smile drawn in soft light. It's not a boundary, it's a gesture, a nod from the cosmos, a gentle closing of the book that held all the drifting pieces of this long dream. The ship eases into this light, and the hull hums with a resonance that doesn't sound like music, but feels like a lullaby, one that needs no words, one that never needed to be sung aloud. Inside the cabin, the lights begin to dim, the displays fade. The floor beneath you softens into silence. You're not asleep, not entirely, but sleep is near now, closer than anything else. It wraps around you like a quiet current, like the hush between stars. You realize that in all this drifting, in all this watching and listening and simply being, you were never truly alone. Every field you passed, every veil of light, every echo and ripple and dreamlike shimmer, they were not just phenomena, they were companion. The universe in its vastness, in its quiet, was always listening. And now, so are you. The ship slows, not to stop, just to rest. It aligns with a final band of starlight, the way a body aligns with breath before sleep. There is no last view, no final message from the stars, only the stillness, only the quiet light, only the understanding that the journey never really ends. It only softens. And here, at the edge, we offer our thanks. Thank you for watching. Thank you for drifting with us. Thank you for allowing this silence to hold you for a while. We hope the stars have eased your mind, and that these hours of wonder have brought you peace, wherever you are, whoever you are.